12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. Good Wednesday morning. It's a Stand on Business Wednesday. So wheels off Wednesday. We are power ranking today the top 5 Big 12 men's basketball teams. Also, off-season optimism is
mandatory.
It's mandatory. It's a Modelo fan rule, and we're talking football today. Each and every day we have a new series, and today we are going through impact wide receiver transfers in the Big 12, which was a brutal list to put together. We'll have our top 5.
New additions.
New additions.
Not necessarily transfers.
Oh, okay.
It was a brutal list to put together, and mine may include some
frosh?
Some frosh.
Some fresh?
Some big-time freshmen in this league coming in that could be major impactful players year one.
Okay, so our lists will vary. Can't wait to break it down. We've got Mike O'Donnell from CBS and NBC, the college basketball guru, if you will, 5th all-time in UCF career threes. He's going to join us later on this hour because it was a wild night on the hardwood last night with Baylor falling at home to BYU. BYU ends their slide, but TCU takes down Iowa State, and then an Oklahoma State gut punch in Tempe against Arizona State that knocks them off of the bubble. But first things first, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Taman on the controls on the audio side, Anthony Smith on the video. There's a big announcement coming. We have news. So stick around. Cancel your meetings because at 10 a.m. Central Time, 3 hours from now, on the nose, we are going to be breaking the Big 12 men's basketball tournament news that has been circulating on our show and on the web. Commissioner Yormark's going to join us on Friday. This is big. This is the tease of all teases.
Yeah, I know this is a Stand on Business Wednesday, and the Big 12 is standing on business on this Wednesday with a huge announcement. We've teased it really over the last week, and we're super excited for this news to finally break. And, amazingly, there's been no leaks of the information, which is sort of surprising. No Brett McMurphy or anybody else that are major newsmakers in the college world that have broken this news story before 10 a.m. today. So we're excited to be sort of officially bringing the news to you at 10 a.m. So we usually go until 10. Maybe today we'll go till 10:01.
10:01 has to be done. Big 12 is cooking, by the way. This is going to be awesome. Regardless of who you support and your team and your school, you're going to like it and hope that your team plays several days in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament. You know who we haven't heard from much lately?
Oh, man. I feel like there's a lot. I feel like this is like a trick question. No? Who?
It is, but it isn't. By the way, today's National Flannel Day. Where's your flannel?
Who have we not heard from in a while?
Coach Prime.
Oh. Is he celebrating National Flannel Day today?
I'm sure he is.
Something tells me Prime doesn't.
Big flannel guy.
Not a flannel guy.
You're dressed like somebody who can fix an offense. Meanwhile, I'm dressed like I can fix your fence on National Flannel Day.
But you can't.
But I actually can't. But I can hire somebody who can fix your fence.
With that shirt on.
With this shirt on. They'll say, hey, this guy knows his stuff.
Dion has been awfully quiet. You're right.
Man, he has. And Colorado's put together a decent portal class, I would say. This is the third year in a row that they've been somewhat portal heavy, but also this is their smallest portal class so far this offseason, and we were breaking that down during our transfer portal series. So they actually have a lot of players returning from a team that really struggled last year. Well, he went on record. He was on ESPN. I think it was First Take right before the Super Bowl, and he was talking about NIL and the gap that is widened between the haves and the have-nots, and calls for a college football commissioner, which many coaches have. He also, said that he supports players getting paid. He wants rules and regulations. And then I thought it was interesting that he noted, number one, a Colorado comeback this season or turnaround. And number two, he was asked about the NFL because, remember, those were rumors that were circulating 2 years ago. And he said, no way. After what happened with Shedeur, not interested. But what was your number one takeaway from everything that we heard from Coach Prime in that brief conversation?
Well, just quickly on the Shedeur piece, obviously it hurt him, but to what extent I think we now know. That in many ways he feels like a lot of the people that he thought he knew in the NFL, maybe he didn't, and Shedeur didn't have a great season, but neither did the Cleveland Browns. And I think there was enough that Shedeur did to at least get a second look to think that, he was drafted in the 6th round. So it was clear. It's clear that he was extremely hurt by people that he thought were friends in the NFL and sort of the treatment of his son and how that reflected on him and his relationships. So his quote is, it's tough, but I don't think NIL is sustainable. And oftentimes it seems you see the same consistent teams winning and winning because of the finances that some of the boosters and donors can give. So that needs to be fixed. Let's just sit there for a second. Basically, the best teams are the ones that spend the most and have the most donors and money, and that needs to be fixed. Interesting comments from Deion, right? Because this is sort of the first time we've ever heard a coach say basically he who has the money is the one that stands the most benefits in this, and that needs to be fixed. I'm not necessarily in the I don't agree with that at all in terms of the arms race part of it, and I don't know what would need to be fixed about it. You remember the movie Liar Liar?
Oh, yeah.
When the kid says to his dad, says to Jim Carrey, he says, my teacher says real beauty comes from the inside. And then Jim Carrey says, that's just something ugly people say. So this is just something that people that don't have money say.
Yeah, you're right.
And so it's interesting because here's the guy that said he was going to bring in his own Louis when he took the job, and now he's got egg on his face for saying that because he's presented, and we've talked about this, he's presented a program that is very fickle, that is transactional. I posted a video on my YouTube channel, Ari Temkin Big 12 on YouTube, and basically called out Deion, and this was a month or so back, for being transactional. This was in the wake of losing Jordan Seaton. And when you have a transactional program, you kind of reap what you sow when it comes to losing guys. Many of these programs have tried to create cultural programs that will keep guys in there. And a lot of the responses from Colorado fans were like, why are you pointing this out for Deion? Why are you singling out Deion? They're all doing it. And it's like, really? Have you not been paying attention? The way that Deion runs his program is a lot more transactional and outwardly transactional than maybe some of the other programs. Is that fair, do you think? Is it just the Louis comments that are dictating my thoughts on that, or is that?
No, I think that's fair. I do, to me, I think sometimes there's a generality that if you're a transactional program, if we want to call it that you don't care about your players. And I think Deion does care about his players. He's had his guys' backs in multiple situations. With that said, yeah, that's how he's built his roster. He's gutted the roster 2 and almost 3 years in a row. Now this year he's finally got a little bit of continuity. But at Colorado, what makes it so intriguing to me is Colorado's not known as a developmental program. So if you're going to be transactional, you need to be in Ohio State, a Miami, a Texas Tech. And I'm not saying that, again, these schools that are spending that type of dollars, that they're not building relationships with players, that they're not over-evaluating and going all in on the scouting side of things like they do in Lubbock at Texas Tech. Joey McGuire is the prime example of how you can kind of have both. But Deion at Colorado, after these comments, it's clear to me, and the season that they had last year, that they don't have both, that they need to be more of a developmental program because they don't have the budget that the other programs at the top of college football do. And it also magnified to me how much he leaned on Shedeur, leaned on Travis Hunter, and maybe Colorado never had the resources or the dollar amount that they kind of hyped themselves up as maybe having behind closed doors.
Well, that, and then I think also Deion, maybe some of the juice that Deion thought he would have isn't translating as well, and maybe that's evidenced by some of these guys that are leaving. It's one thing to be transactional in bringing a bunch of guys in. It's another thing to see, Amari and Miller walk out the door. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to see Jordan Seaton walk out the door. So I think Deion has certainly some attributes of being a really good head coach, and we've seen it. I think what we've seen now in this last year is some of his blind spots. And again, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt for last season based on, the obvious health situations that he was dealing with basically from a year ago now, and cancer and having his bladder removed, to his ongoing health issues with blood clots and his leg. And so that needs to be said when we look at what happened last year. But putting that to the side for a second, some of these comments in many ways invalidate some of his previous comments. And a coaching blind spot to me with Deion is not knowing the ins and outs of a program you're taking over as the head coach. If you're taking over as the head coach, you probably should have a sense of the type of donor base that exists. And look, Deion's getting paid a lot of money. And we've talked about coaches that are reinvesting their money into the program. And I'm sure that Deion is doing that to a degree. But and not only does he get paid a lot of money, deservedly so. He's bringing a lot of attention, a lot of headlines to the university. Colorado football has meant more in the national landscape since Deion's been there than they've ever meant. I'm not trying to unravel that, but these are things you probably need to know about the program when you take over, because you can't just get there and then 2 years later be like, whoa, we don't have the money I thought we had, and suddenly I can't retain these players. You need to set up your program culturally to fit what you have. And that there's been a misalignment there.
And there's a lot of misalignments with Colorado because there are just some things that don't make sense. They operated at a large deficit last year, but they're also selling out every home game. They were the second most watched team last year in college football in the Big 12, despite going 3-9. There's still attention and excitement around that program. So is it a misevaluation of talent? Is it something internally with the coaching staff that needs to be taken a hard look at? They were second to last in the Big 12 in scoring offense, second to last in the Big 12 in total offense, yards per game, dead last in the Big 12 in total defense, yards allowed per game, rotated 3 different quarterbacks who had multiple starts throughout the course of the season. And again, this was year one post-Shedeur and post-Travis Hunter. So it was kind of a reality check for Colorado last year. And kind of to your point, with Omarion Miller and with Salter and all the hype coming in, and Jordan Seaton, who's a first-round lock in the NFL draft whenever that day comes, they had pieces, right? On paper, I thought their roster was much better than their 3-9 record. And they had an upset win over Iowa State at home and took some other teams that had much better records to the wire. So I'm saying all that to say it's hard for me to get a feel for how excited to be about Colorado for this upcoming season. Is making a bowl a big step for Colorado to get back on track? Or is it 8 or 9 wins that Deion's forecasting when he says, we're going to dominate from top to bottom?
Yeah, I think realistic expectations for a team that still hasn't solidified the quarterback position to the degree that it needs to be to get to a bowl eligibility would be a huge year for them. But when you've got Deion making these comments on First Take, it feels like a complete contradiction of the type of coach that he's embodied. It is a complete 180 from the perception that he's helped to create around him and his program. When you say I'm bringing in my Louis, and then you do, but you can't retain your Louis, that's problematic. That speaks to the lack of development. It speaks to the lack of resources financially. Why would Omarion Miller leave?
Right.
And go to Arizona State, who, we know they're not flush with cash, but maybe more so than Colorado. Mm-hmm. But if you're Miller, you were in position to be number 1 again, 2 straight years. Nobody really pushing you for that spot. So why leave? What about Seaton? 2 years at left tackle, basically starting every single game. Why are you leaving? Money? That's a totally different type of roster and roster management than what you said you were going to have.
Well said. All right, that's our look at Colorado. J.D. Pickell, before we touch on Big 12 basketball, that'll be next segment. Emmanuel Sharp became the all-time career leader in made threes in Houston basketball history. Last night, he had 8 threes for the Cougars. But J.D. Pickell from On3 broke down, and he looked at a bunch of different criteria to try and forecast the college football programs that are best set up for success over the next 3 years, not the next 5 or 10, over the next 3. He looks at coach and roster stability. He looks at trends in recruiting and adding talent. And then he looks at resources. His top 6 feature Oregon, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Miami, number 3, Georgia, 4, Notre Dame, 5. We'll see them on a Big 12 schedule, BYU this year. And then Texas Tech, number 6. Programs in the nation. He's got Indiana, 7, by the way, Texas, 8, Texas A&M, 9, and LSU 10. So a bunch of SEC schools. But to see Texas Tech at number 6, looking ahead for the next 3 years, I thought was a good thing for the league.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, these are the types of lists that we see a lot in the offseason about like future power rankings and who's set up for most success. And I mean, they're dressed up in a bunch of different ways. It feels like those types of lists are less relevant now than ever before. I mean, Indiana's 7th on that list. If they would have compiled the list like that last year, Indiana probably wouldn't have made it. And then the year before that. So I mean, think about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. To look at the future 3-year power rankings for a team that went to the playoff and then won a national championship with an undefeated season, probably wouldn't have even made that list, because some of the things that go into those lists, resources, access to talent, are, have never historically been there for Indiana. So, I appreciate JD making this list, and, we'll see many of these throughout the offseason. I think they're, quite frankly, crap at this point in time and where we are in college athletics.
Yeah. And to echo your sentiment, let me read you the top 10 from the final college football AP poll of 2023, which was just 3 years ago. The final AP top 25 number 1 team was Michigan. Number 2 was Washington. Number 3 was Texas, and then Georgia 4, Alabama 5, Oregon 6, Florida State 7, Missouri 8, and then Ole Miss and Ohio State. That was the final AP top 25, top 10, 3 years ago. Washington was number 2. Like, a lot can change, to your point, in 3 seasons. A ton. All right, a big night last night in men's basketball in the Big 12. A recap of Tuesday's slate of games. There were 4 in action. We'll preview the couple of games tonight, hear from the coaches, before we chat with Mike O'Donnell, college basketball analyst for CBS and NBC, covers the Big 12. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Arizona State, but with some injuries, they played more zone than they ever have under Bobby Hurley. The Big 12 is going to have a similar selection Sunday as the SEC had last year.
This is Roy, and that's a 3. Falla out high with the screen. Clary, difficult shot, and he makes it. That's falling out of bounds. Get it off the glass and get it in. That was a borderline floater. That was part jump shot, part floater.
Well, there's 2 different trains of thought.
There's another offensive rebound, and it's Truitt again. Johnson down the lane, sweeping layup. Jump with the right hand. Roy, mismatch speed-wise against Jop. Takes him in the lane, and then with the left hand, just misses. Falla put back. How about that? Isaiah Coleman, and Roy misses a 3 and misses it badly. Up the floor, Jop, the catch, and the dunk from Odom.
What a delivery from Mo Odom.
Cowboys extending their defense. Mayusin against Falla, gets in the lane, running. Hawk, oh, what a shot! Wow. Clary Makes a three. A contested three. Chop has the rebound, and the Sun Devils have the win. Arizona State beats Oklahoma State. 6 Sun Devils in double figures.
This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios, listening on TuneIn. Big 12 Radio is brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo. And our game of the week this week on Big 12 Radio is Kansas at Iowa State, a Valentine's Day special at 1 Eastern, noon Central Time. Speaking of Iowa State, they fell last night at TCU. As we take a look at what happened last night on the men's side, Houston went on the road and handled business on a stand-on business Wednesday. Day at the office for the Cougars, 66-52. Emmanuel Sharp became the school's all-time career leader in made threes. He had 8 last night, a career high. TCU takes down Iowa State in Fort Worth. BYU ends their slide. They go on the road and beat Baylor 99-94. And Arizona State hangs on against Oklahoma State in Tempe, 85-76. What was the biggest surprise to you? What was the most shocking outcome last night on the men's side?
I mean, I think there's two significant stories here, and that it's really about the middle of the Big 12. Number one, TCU like, hey, remember us? Remember us? TCU has 4 quad one wins, including Wisconsin and Florida. And, big picture Iowa State, I think they've got some struggles despite being top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Although I think they're now outside the top 10 or maybe even 15 in Ken Palm. And Oklahoma State, what a disappointing loss for Oklahoma State. I mean, we basically looked at the rest of their schedule and saw the wins and saw the losses, and then they go and lay an egg against an Arizona State team that's at the bottom of the league. I mean, that's a bad loss for a team that was trending up in the NCAA tournament ranks. Steve Lutz has won 1 Big 12 road game in 2 seasons so far. And that obviously came recently, but that's bad. Mm-hmm. And especially, what did Oklahoma State lose to Arizona on Saturday by?
30-something.
37 points. So, bless you. You lose by 37 points and then rebound with a midweek game like this. Yeah, that was brutal. That's a bad loss for Oklahoma State. But Iowa State continues to struggle on the road. Look, I think Iowa State offensively, either Big 12 defenses have figured some things out, but they go into lulls. And, I mean, you hold a Big 12 team to 62 points, you should win that game. Iowa State led 55-50 with 2:14 left and then did not score again. TCU closed on a 12-0 run, flipped the entire game. Jaden Pierre hit a pull-up 3 with 48 seconds left that put TCU ahead for good. And, it was basically a steal at half court on Tamin Lipsey after the 3 that essentially put the game to bed. 17 turnovers for the Iowa State Cyclones. Again, they hit these lulls on offense, and they just can't score. And, I mean, I think, they've got a small ball lineup where Jefferson plays the 5. The problem is they can't play that the entire game because then you're tiring Jefferson too much, and they just don't have enough for big ball lineups with their bigs. They struggle too much with true 5s. Also, Iowa State is shooting 68% from the free throw line on the season as a team. That's bad. That's real bad.
They have some holes offensively.
They are a really good elite defensive team that I think of late is showing some major holes on offense. This is a significant loss because last time I checked, NCAA tournament games are not played at Hilton Coliseum.
Right.
And they struggled to win on the road. And, they're going to have 2 big home games here, Saturday against Kansas and then Monday. I believe it's home against Houston, right? The big Monday Iowa State-Houston game is at Iowa State, right?
Let's see. Iowa State has, Kansas and Houston coming up next, back-to-back at home.
Both at home.
And then at BYU. So Hilton Magic will need to be alive and well. I'm with you on Iowa State and the lulls that they have, the droughts offensively. Evan Miyakawa does a great job of tracking kill shots, which is a run of 10-0 or more. Well, TCU had 2 in this game. Iowa State was on the wrong side of that and have been at significant junctures this season. A couple of times in Lawrence at KU when they got blown out. Now, Iowa State gets a lot of 10-0 runs, but on the flip side, they surrender a lot of 10-0 runs. They're very streaky. And they had this game in control right before halftime. TCU went on a 10-0 run to get it down to 1. And then scoring the final 12 points unanswered is just, there's no excuse for that if you're Iowa State and you're a top 10 team, top 5 team, as their resume would indicate.
Well, and I think the most confusing part is this is one of the more experienced teams in the conference. This is Tamin Lipsey's been around the block. Joshua Jefferson, Milan Momcilovic, these are not first-year guys. Nate Heisey, these are all guys that have played together the last couple of years. So I think, when we look at this league, there's a lot of teams that are sort of rolling the ball out there and having guys figure out how to play together. Kansas is a good example of that. I mean, you got a bunch of guys that haven't played together. Iowa State has that, and yet still hits these lulls of scoring. I mean, 25 points in the second half after a 30-point first half. It's real bad.
Mm-hmm. And TCU's won back-to-back now, games in which they have closed out the opponent. They rallied down all day against Kansas State, scored the go-ahead basket at the foul line with 6.5 seconds to go, and then closing the Iowa State game on a 12-0 run. Jaden Pierre only had 9 points, but he had a huge dagger go-ahead 3 with 48 seconds left, as you noted. Tanner Toolson off the bench, 17 points and 9 rebounds. So TCU, have they turned a corner? Here's Jamie Dixon on the best may still be in front of the Horned Frogs.
It's, I just said we've played. I don't think any. Find someone that's played 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the year in the same year, and then we've got. I'm forgetting that the lowly ranked Kansas team and the BYU team and the somebody else too. Is Florida. They're in there as well. So hey, we've lost to good teams. We haven't been perfect, but our best days are ahead of us. That's what I keep telling our guys.
Well, they're 4-6 now, James, in quad one games. 4 quad one wins usually get you in. Their worst loss is probably at Utah.
In league play outside of New Orleans to open the year.
Good point. I forgot about the New Orleans loss, which may come back to bite them even with the 4-6 quad one record. They only lost to Michigan by 4. Have the wins over Florida and Wisconsin. And then Jamie Dixon's right. Here's the rest of their season. At Oklahoma State on Saturday. At UCF. Okay, that's a tough one. West Virginia at home. Arizona State at home. At K-State. At Texas Tech. Cincinnati. So, they only played Texas Tech in terms of, the top teams of the Big 12. They have some tough road games. Oklahoma State, UCF, and Texas Tech are all tough. But K-State, or rather West Virginia, Arizona State, and Cincinnati at home. So I think Jamie Dixon's right. They're about to get hot just based on the rest of their schedule. Their toughest games are behind them aside from the at Texas Tech game on March 3rd.
They're such a weird team to figure out. And when you look at their body of work, maybe nobody in the Big 12 that's at least in contention for an NCAA tournament bid has as bad of losses as TCU. When you talk about New Orleans, they also lost to Notre Dame, who's 11-14 and 2-10 in the ACC. They have a loss to Utah, which is Utah's only Big 12 win. But then they also have 4 quad one wins, to your point, and they've won 4 of their last 6. So how will the NCAA selection committee look at that early season, November and December, versus what they've done as of late? And there's a massive game for them on Saturday at Oklahoma State, 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN2.
There's just this log jam behind UCF in the Big 12 right now with Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, who else am I? West Virginia. It feels like West Virginia and TCU are the latest flavor of the day on this because Oklahoma State lost last night, and that's a bad loss to Arizona State, and then, and then Baylor losing as well to BYU in an opportunity that they had. We haven't touched on that game yet, but that's a game they were up by double digits, and then AJ DeBanza was fantastic, Rob Wright was fantastic in that one, where BYU closed them out, was up 15 at the end, and then Baylor made it close, but close only works in horseshoes and hand grenades.
Both teams in that Baylor-BYU game shot over 50% from the floor. A.J. DeBonsa had 36 points, but also Tunde Yesufu had 37 for Baylor, a career night for their freshman star. Rob Wright, 30 points for BYU on 12 of 21 shooting, had a career high against his former team. Here's what BYU coach Kevin Young said about BYU ending that 4-game skid on the road.
Never know in the Big 12. Every game's hard. Every team has good players and good coaching and good atmosphere. So I'll have to look at the film to see exactly what happened. I thought they made a little run. I thought, Richie probably doesn't pull the trigger on that last 3 in the corner and we win by 10 or 12 and the game's over, right? So give them credit for extending the game at the end. But I love the fact that, our guys showed resiliency on the road when it feels, things have been tough sledding for us. And so to have that kind of poise on the road against it, and unfortunately for us, it feels like every night someone's having a career night. But Yesufu was incredible. He got going. And like I said, for our guys to be able to withstand that and just have the determination to just flat out get a win, I'm proud of them for that.
BYU opened the second half on a 15-2 run. They led 58-50, actually stretched their lead to as many as 17 in the second half after a couple of Baylor turnovers that led to threes on the other end. But then Baylor rallied. They had it down to 4 with about a minute to go, and it looked like maybe they could get that thing into overtime. But BYU hangs 99 on the road and picks up a quad 1 win.
Well, and that's sort of the nature of the beast for Baylor. They just can't get stops. I mean, and this is a league where you've got to have a team that can consistently get stops on the defensive end. You've got to, excuse the pun here, bear down on the defensive end and get stops. And, I mean, 99 points ain't it. Every time Baylor made a run in the second half, it was Dabansa or Rob Wright shutting the door. Every time. I mean, they had an answer every single time. And, again, I attribute that more to a porous defense than anything else. But, BYU did a good job getting to the free throw line. Rob Wright, was extremely fired up. He was booed the entire game. And these are two desperate teams. I mean, BYU was desperate to end their skid as they're free falling, and Baylor is just trying to get a really good win here.
KenPom has 3 Big 12 teams in the top 10 of offensive efficiency. Okay, there's 3 Big 12 schools in the top 10 of KenPom's offensive efficiency. Who do you think they are?
Arizona.
And in what order? Okay, Arizona.
Baylor.
Okay.
And BYU? No, Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, okay. The 3 schools in the top 10 of KenPom's offensive efficiency rating are Arizona, BYU, and Houston, but not in that order. The best offensive team in the Big 12 is BYU, and they're 4th in the country in offensive efficiency rating.
Wow.
But defensively, they're 56th. My point is, if they can continue to improve on the defensive end, they've identified that opposing shooters, or lack thereof, guys that don't shoot a very high percentage, typically go off against BYU. I think it's because they're highlighting those guys and leaving them more open. If they clean things up defensively, all of a sudden they are a very, very dangerous team in the NCAA tournament.
Well, and doing a deeper dive into the top 5 of KenPom offensive ratings, Illinois is number 1. They're 31st in defensive rating. Alabama's number 2. They're 65th. Purdue is number 3. They're 23rd in defensive rating. BYU is 4th. They're 56th. Michigan is 5th. They're 1st in defensive rating. So the majority of the teams in the top 5, except for Michigan, are basically also bad defensive teams.
And what's that banger KenPom stat? I think it's like 19 of the last 20 NCAA champions have been top 20 in both.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure within the last 25 years, every team except for one has been top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. The problem with that is it keeps going. So you could say, like, when the tournament's about to start, I'm only going to pick teams that are top 10 in both when the tournament starts. The problem is you might have a team that's like 15th in defensive rating, and then they're in the top 10 by the time the season ends.
Right. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. That's a really good point because of those tournament games.
Right. Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. It's not like these are the teams that can win it. Because I remember, like, a few years back, I was like, I'm just going to pick teams that are top 10 in both. And then you look, you're like, how'd that team win it? They weren't top 10 in both. You're like, oh, well, then they ended the season that way. Got it. Okay.
That makes sense. All right, let's take a timeout. Coming up next, Mike O'Donnell, college basketball analyst for CBS and NBC Sports, joins us. We are brought to you by Modelo. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league.
It's overtime. So here we go. Houston, look at that record in true road games over the last 2 years. 14-1. Trying to make it another win. 21-2. Third-ranked team in the country. Emmanuel Sharp from way outside hits the three. That's the second three-point bucket in these first couple minutes. Sharp, he's really feeling it. That one from way outside.
That has carried over into tonight's contest.
4 of 5 threes in the first half. Dawes down the low. Oh my goodness.
Are you kidding me?
Well, we're going to have to see that one again. Sharp, meanwhile.
Stop
another one.
Let's go. Utah is doing a really good job of handling the pressure. When they don't turn the ball over, they've had great efficiency. They're shooting 67% against this Houston Cougars defense early. Why not? Why not?
Got another one. It was like a knee to the quad in the first half. Kind of limped around for a few minutes. I wonder if that's still bugging him. Turnover. Tugler steals it away. Dumps it home. A great rim protector, shot blocker on this team.
Missed a little bit of that Juwan Roberts from a year ago.
Sharp hits another three. That's his first one in a long time, but it's his 7th of the game.
You want him to be aggressive, but it's okay to slow it down a little bit and kind of get into your rhythm.
This time, that one goes! 10-1 in Big 12 play. Utah's struggling. Houston handles business here on this Utah road trip.
Dominated second chance points, dominated the points off the turnovers.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. Heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on the Big 12 Fast Channel, Big 12 Studios. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. A guy that will be on the call tonight for CBS Sports is Mike O'Donnell. He's in Manhattan, Kansas, getting geared up for Cincinnati and Kansas State. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. How are we doing, fellas?
Fantastic. A wild night last night in the Big 12. When did you get to Manhattan?
Last night. Got in late afternoon to Kansas City. I get that direct flight from Orlando to Kansas City. Stop off on a little Sprouts action. Load up on some chicken, some bone broth, some rice, some fruit. Make the drive to Manhattan, Kansas. And gonna hit up the chef this morning for breakfast. So all good, man, all good.
And Ari, Mike is not kidding. He has a very strict routine which he does not deviate from. He hits a Sprouts up everywhere he goes.
Sometimes Whole Foods,
Whole Foods, yeah, big bone broth guy. So if you wonder where he's getting his chiseled physique, it's all about the bone broth.
I did wonder, and now I know.
Is there anything I could eat to get my hair coiffed in a way that could resonate and resemble yours, James?
NAD. It's all about the subs. That's it.
Oh my Lord. Okay.
All right, Mike. What was the biggest headline, I guess, in the Big 12 last night when you look at the slate?
Oh man. Well, maybe go a little bit outside of the box, just a tiny bit. For the last, and guys, I know you've been following it too. For the last, let's say 3 weeks, 2.5 to 3 weeks, the conversation has been, big picture wise, the Big 12. If you look at, anywhere from any of the mock drafts, not the mock drafts, any of the mock bracketologists where you think is going to actually get in the tournament, Big 12 has 7 teams in. And you say that, and then everybody is wildly in the same agreement that the Big 12 has the best top six in the country, and say, okay, well, then you only get one more team in after that, and that team has been UCF, and that the resume absolutely matches up for that. And then there's like 2 or 3 teams that you're unsure. TCU getting Iowa State last night is a big deal, and that I've felt since November that TCU is a tournament caliber team, and they have a really interesting, almost bizarre resume in that they have a quad 4 loss and a quad 3 loss, but they have 4 quad 1 wins, and a couple of those quad 1 wins that includes Florida, monster win and neutral site. Wisconsin, monster win. That's neutral site. And I think then you beat Iowa State. Guys, I think, TCU has an interesting upcoming schedule where about 5 games, 4 out of those 5 are very winnable for them. Very winnable. And I even think, that the game when they play UCF is going to be kind of a toss-up game too. So if they can get 4 out of 5, you're not on the quote-unquote bubble anymore. You're on the right side of the bubble there. I said it, man, maybe a month and a half ago when you guys, we were talking about this. I think the Big 12 gets at least 8 teams in, and I think TCU is going to end up being that 8th team.
Yeah, I mean, their resume is so interesting. They're going to be one of the most interesting teams when it comes down to Selection Sunday. I mean, they've got losses in all 4 quads. They have the 4 quad 1 wins, as you referenced. It's pretty wild. Iowa State lost last night. They struggle on the road, and at times they struggle on offense. What do you make of Iowa State's road struggles and offensive struggles at times?
I mean, this season though, so they've lost 3 games this season. So what I call them struggles is Iowa State struggling. I think that maybe, I don't know if I'm ready to commit to that.
Maybe a bit much.
What's that?
Maybe a bit much to call them struggling with 3 losses.
Yeah, I'm not ready. Me personally, I'm not ready for that. For that convo, and just in terms of my belief, because they've only had 3 losses and they played a very difficult non-conference schedule, and it's the Big 12, and it's TCU, and you lose to TCU at TCU in a really tight game. You don't play good, and the reality is TCU will probably be there's a good chance that TCU will be in the NCAA tournament. So you lose to an NCAA tournament team on the road in the middle of conference play. After TCU, this might be their momentum switch where they come back and they beat Kansas State in a wild last 30 seconds in that game, and that's 2 wins in a row for TCU. I think it's a pump the brakes on that. You are right in effect that yes, when TCU struggles, when they struggle on the road, it's on the offensive side of the ball. Absolutely, Momcilovic has to score more than what he did last night. Joshua Jefferson has to score more than what he did last night. And those 2 guys are key. They can't be sitting on 11, 12 points in a tight ball game. And those 2 guys need to be in a place to where they are, they're in that, they got to be over 15, somewhere between 15 and 20. And that's when Iowa State is virtually unbeatable. And that's when Iowa State blows out Purdue at Purdue. Going to be one of the best wins, non-conference wins in the entire country. So I get it. I can see how there could be an overreaction there, but I don't agree with it only because they've only lost 3 games and they're still a top 10 team in the country, and that's an Elite 8 basketball team on a neutral floor. So I think it speaks more to the depth of the Big 12 than anything else.
Mike, do you foresee Houston getting a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament as Emmanuel Sharp goes for a career-high 8 threes last night, and it was a day at the office on the road?
Yeah, I still think it's going to be tough for them to get a 1 seed, and not that they're not good enough to be a 1 seed. You're going off a resume, and I think where it hurts Houston is because Arizona just had just an absurd run there until they dropped their first game at Kansas, which is totally understandable, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And I think it's going to have to be the conversation about UConn, and maybe they're in that conversation, and they if Houston runs the table in the Big 12 regular season, do you bump UConn because UConn doesn't have as strong as a conference schedule? Maybe, but right now, UConn is that last 4 number 1 seed in my opinion, and just kind of following some of the bracketologists. Going to be difficult, but if Houston runs the regular season table, it's going to be more difficult to keep them off that 1 seed. But man, they looked at BYU, guys. My gosh, that is the toughest team in college basketball, and I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, let's talk about Kansas. What a win for the Jayhawks on Monday. Without Darren Peterson, what a job Bill Self is doing in having to kind of coach two different teams. Add some context here, Mike, for your thoughts on the Jayhawks.
Oh man, we don't have enough time. I can't hot take quick enough to provide all of my thoughts in an eloquent manner. I knew you guys were gonna ask me this, so I'm gonna try to be succinct. I see it in layers. I think Kansas without Darren Peterson on a neutral site floor is good enough to get to the Sweet 16.
Wow.
I think Kansas with Darren Peterson, when everything is humming and perfect, Darren Peterson is good enough to take Kansas to the Final Four. And I also then think the give and take could have Kansas knocked out in the first round. That's the peaks and valleys of this Kansas team. I think Kansas defense is awesome. I think it's awesome. I think their toughness level is way better and way bigger than people give them credit for. I think they're an amazing rim protecting team. I think they're a very good to almost great defensive team that I think they're going to become a great defensive team. I think Melvin Council, my hot take for this is I think Melvin Council deserves. He's not going to win it, and I don't think he should win it. But I think Melvin Council deserves to be in conversation for Big 12 Player of the Year. I think he's that important to Kansas. And as Kansas keeps winning, and you're looking at a player who, if Melvin Council isn't on that team, there is no way that Kansas beats Arizona. There is no way that Kansas's toughness and pace and tempo is what it is without Melvin Council. And even though he's not going to win it, but I think he deserves to be in that conversation, especially like what happens if Kansas, they're still theoretically, what happens if Kansas finishes second in the Big 12? Or he has to be in that conversation for Big 12 Player of the Year. Even if Kansas finishes third or fourth, he has to be in that conversation, in my opinion. I am an enormous fan of Melvin Council's game and how much he loves to. There's no question that kid loves to play for Kansas, and I'm an enormous fan of that. As for Darren Peterson,
agreed.
As for Darren Peterson, guys, he's the best scorer in college basketball. He will most likely be the number one pick in the draft. We're at the point of things are strange. Strange in an effect of I don't want to do this because I think Darren Peterson's a really good kid, and he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent, generational scoring guard that every NBA franchise is salivating at the opportunity to draft him. But it feels like I don't know if Darren Peterson is making decisions for Darren Peterson. I have no information to go off of that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that's what it feels like because that's how strange it's been.
Yeah.
When you deal with cramps, I've dealt with cramps. Every hooper that has ever pounded the rock has dealt with cramps in some capacity. When you deal with cramps and you voluntarily take yourself out, there are things you do on the sideline that you have to do. And I've never seen Darren Peterson do any of those. So I'm going to give Darren Peterson the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe these are different. Maybe this is different. This is a different situation. He has a medical situation. Oh, okay. Well, that's if he's got a medical situation, man, I hope he gets healthy. Well, that medical situation, then it's continuing to persist. Okay. So then he's getting blown up on social media. And it became to the point of, is it a real medical situation? If it is, I really do hope it gets better for him, for his draft stock, for his opportunities. I hope it gets better. But if it's a lingering thing, do you need then for your draft stock? Because now do you start to have people, NBA GMs questioning the medical longevity and probability of Darren Peterson playing 82 regular season NBA games? Or are you drafting him knowing that you're going to have to do load management year one for a Zion Williamson situation? Do you want that in your franchise? So now we've got even more questions to where I don't think Darren Peterson and Darren Peterson's team have essentially thought this all the way through. The last thing I'll say is this. I'm a huge fan of Darren Peterson. I think he's a great kid. I think he's a once-in-a-generational talent. And I think if he decides and his team decides that he's going to go all out from now until the NCAA tournament and go full Darren Peterson mode, not only would he be a legend at Kansas, and not only would he be the number one pick in the draft, his marketing ability would fly through the absolute roof. And I hope that happens. I hope we see Darren Peterson unleashed, because I think he could average 40. I think he could average 40, and I think he's good enough, and Kansas is tough enough to play in the national title game. And what a story that would be, and what an NBA draft conversation we would have about Darren Peterson then.
Yeah, he's insane. He is him. Mike O'Donnell, college basketball analyst, on the call for CBS tonight between Cincinnati and Kansas State in Manhattan. Also covers the Big 12 for NBC, among others. Mike, appreciate your time. We'll catch up again here in a couple of weeks.
Take care, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Mike O'Donnell, college basketball analyst, on the call tonight, again for Cincinnati at Kansas State. That game is at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 Central on CBS Sports Network. Coming up next, Artie and I power rank the top 5 Big 12 basketball teams after an incredible week in the conference. Some movement. Then we'll also take a look at some of the worst trades of all time. This is Big 12 Today, exclusively on TuneIn.
At Utah, just up the road. Lee Cummard on the other sideline for BYU in his first season. We wondered if there would be a change-up in the lineup after our conversation with Coach Cummard, but it is the usual starters. Pick and roll for Rokel, and somehow able to hold on to that basketball. Lost it inside, and Iowa State looking to run after the BYU turnover. They go right to Crooks, and one.
I'm not sure that was the greatest shot selection that Coach Fenley would want.
Shot clock is winding down, and Hare's going to throw it up and knock it down. BYU's 48, and the Cougars lead by 6. This is their large lead, or matching their large lead, but it's short-lived. Audie Crooks, an 18-point BYU lead, and the Cougars looking for more. Hamlin, baseline drive, nobody home. The lead out to 20. They almost have 28 here in the third quarter alone. Crooks reestablishes inside, somehow gets that roll over the rim and go down. BYU working some clock now, shot clock down to 8 as we approach 8 minutes to play. Gibb, good bounce pass inside, Rokel.
Time to just let her pound it down low and go to the rim.
And still, even with that bucket, Hamlin, more points in the paint for the Cougars. She's got a career high 23 after that make. 5 turnovers until about 4 minutes to play in the game. So BYU's ball security not great, and Iowa State misses a couple of bunnies at the hoop to close out a dominant home win for BYU.
Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios, is brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. We have Mike Rooney, the college baseball analyst for ESPN and D1Baseball.com, here in about 20 minutes to preview the now underway Big 12 baseball season. But each and every Wednesday, Ari, what do?
We power rank, because it's not good enough to just have things in this world. You have to power rank them accordingly, and so that is what we do on Wednesdays. We're just a power ranking society, and so you're looking at a couple of power ranking fools over here.
Just a couple of power ranking fools. So we've got our top 5. Big
James
12.
has been asking his family to power rank everything.
Everything around the house.
Upsetting his wife and everything, but it's worth it. It's like, we didn't choose this life. This life chose us.
Power rank my fit. Power rank those leftovers. Power rank the silverware. Who do we have for you today? Power ranking men's basketball 1 through 5.
Number 5.
All right, number 5 for me is Iowa State. I think the top 5 is obvious. The order is not. Very curious to see your top 5. But Iowa State, for me, coming off their loss, and while it's just their 3rd loss of the season, we've seen some bad stretches at times of really poor basketball for Iowa State, especially on the offensive end. And I think we saw that last night with a big win for TCU. But Iowa State's got to figure out how to win on the road. They've got to figure out how to get their offense out of some of these lulls that they've had. So you mentioned 2 kill shots for TCU in that game, which is 10-0 runs. So fresh off their loss to TCU, their 3rd loss of the season, I've got Iowa State at number 5.
I also have Iowa State at number 5 because of some of their losses in Big 12 play, like losing at Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse.
Right.
Who doesn't, right? But you lose at Cincinnati by 9. Then you lose at TCU, a game in which TCU closed out the final 2.5 minutes on a 12-0 run. Like in the NCAA tournament, you have to score down the stretch and close people out. In Iowa State, in those 2 losses, those struggles have been magnified. Seems like Iowa State's either losing close ones where they're in foul trouble and they run out of gas, or they're just blowing the doors off teams like Colorado, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, UCF, won all of those games by around 20 or 30 points. So they've been hot and cold. I've got Iowa State number 5 as well.
Number 4.
This is where I have Texas Tech. 17-6 overall, but they are 2-3 in their last 5, with one of those wins against Houston. So obviously that's one of the more impressive wins of the Big 12 season. JT Toppin and Christian Anderson, we know all about them. And obviously the loss to Kansas comes without Christian Anderson, so you've got to, add that to the fold in terms of, had they had Christian Anderson, maybe things had gone differently. But in terms of Texas Tech, they're number 19 in the net. They're currently 2-4 in Quad 1, rather 4-6 in Quad 1, but 2-4 in Quad 1A, which is the top teams they played, which is probably why they're in that second tier of the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, I've got Texas Tech at number 4 as well. I rank them number 4, not necessarily based off their resume, but based off of, I think they are the 4th and maybe the 3rd most dangerous team in the NCAA tournament in March from this conference. They are built for the NCAA tournament because they have a plethora of guys that can shoot the cover off the ball. They're getting healthier. It's been an uptick for Texas Tech in that department. Christian Anderson missed the KU game because of a flu bug, not because of a knee or an ankle or a hip or anything like that. He was just under the weather. That's a huge loss for Texas Tech. Mosley coming off the bench has been a bright spot. They still get Bamboye, hopefully at some point, to help on the interior.
Time's running out.
JT Toppin's a dude. They're going to be fine.
Number 3.
All right, this is where the list gets interesting.
Boy, does it.
This is where I have the Arizona Wildcats.
Shut the front door.
I mean, they lost this week, did they not?
Yeah, they did.
They lost to a team without their best player, did they not?
Yeah.
So we just talked about, Texas Tech lost to Kansas without Christian Anderson. Well, Arizona lost to Kansas without Darren Peterson. Look, Arizona's still really good, and I'm not sure overall what this loss really does for them. We'll at some point, I'm sure, talk about are they the number 1 overall seed, or should they still be? The reality is, as long as they're a 1 seed, they're going to get the 1 seed in the West, which is exactly what Joe Lunardi told us yesterday. So they don't even need to be the number 1 overall seed. Because what does that matter? All that matters is they get the 1 seed in the West. It's the most important thing, right? So without any competition for a 1 seed in the West, they're fine, okay? They're 8-1 in Quad 1. 8-1 in Quad 1. 4-1 in Quad 1A, which is the upper echelon of the Quad 1. And they are 14-1 in Quad 1 and 2 combined. But look, I think what we saw against Kansas proved to be maybe problematic for them. Braden Berry's maybe their best player, which is insane when you consider the experience of Jaden Bradley, when you consider the star power of Koa Pete and how he looked at the early part of the season. Berry's the only dude that showed up at Allen Fieldhouse, it felt like, him and Krivas. So, look, I think they're really good offensively, really good defensively, but they're coming off their first loss of the season. And, I don't want to call it a bad loss, but they lost at Kansas, which is tough, without Darren Peterson.
Number 3 is where I have Kansas.
Makes sense.
With that said,
they've beaten 3 teams in the top 5, but yeah, no, sure. It should be 3.
It says a lot that Arizona's number 3 on your list, Kansas number 3 on mine. There are 3 legitimate top 10 teams in the Big 12, which is where they're ranked, and it's appropriate in the AP poll. But these may be 3 of the top 5 teams in the entire country from this conference. The difference for me is I want to see Kansas win on the road. They're 4-3 on the road in true road games. They're 11-1 in Allen Fieldhouse, but 4-3 on the road. Meanwhile, Arizona and Houston are 6-1 and 5-1 on the road. And I can't knock a team for losing in Allen Fieldhouse when Arizona's 6-1 in the top 25 or against top 25 foes. They're 2-1 against top 10 opponents. They're 23-1. Kansas, Houston, Arizona, all top 5 teams in the country. But I've got Kansas number 3 in the Big 12.
Number 2.
This is where I have Kansas. I have Kansas number 2 right now. 9-2. Somehow, someway, after starting 1-2 in Big 12 play, they've rattled off 8 straight to get to 9-2 and be very much in the thick of the Big 12 championship race. And they figured it out. They figured out how to play with Darren Peterson. They figured out how to play without Darren Peterson. It's remarkable. And look, I think some of those losses you're alluding to, especially on the road, have a lot to do with 1, schedule, and 2, the fact that they were kind of figuring out how to play, both ways for a while there. They're 5-3 in Quad 1, 2-2 in Quad 1A. So again, they've sort of figured some things out. But they own the best win in the Big 12 season so far, winning at home without Darren Peterson against Arizona. But they've beaten 3 teams here in the top 5. They've beaten Texas Tech, they've beaten Iowa State, they've beaten Arizona.
Quality wins. I've got Houston, number 2. Emmanuel Sharp hit a career-high 8 threes last night in their win over Utah. And on paper, the nation looks at a 66-52 score against the worst team in the Big 12 record-wise, and it doesn't move the needle. But that's just Houston being Houston. They only have 2 losses, one of them in Lubbock on game day, 90-86. And since that game, they've taken care of business. They never trailed at TCU. I don't think they've trailed in their last 5 games. I'd have to go check that to lock down that stat, but it just seems like everywhere they go, it doesn't matter. Houston is Houston. They're top 8 in the country in offense and defensive efficiency rating. According to KenPom, Kingston Fleming's averaging 16.5, but a major uptick in his points per game in league play.
Number 1.
The champs are here. The champs are here. Number 1, Houston, right? Very quietly, the back-to-back Big 12 champs, who in 2 years of the Big 12 have won 3 of a possible 4 championships. The only loss being in that tournament championship last season, 2 seasons ago. They won the Big 12 championship in the tournament last year, right?
Yes.
At any rate, have we forgotten about them? As you mentioned, they're top 6 in KenPom, top 8 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Very quietly, very under the radar, because they haven't even played their best ball yet. They're 21-2, and they haven't even scratched the surface of their potential. They good. They real good. Only losses are at the Quad 1 level. Again, 6 in the net, top 8 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Houston, right now, there's no comparison. They're the defending champs. The champs are here. Number 1.
They've won 5 in a row. All right, number 1 for me is Arizona.
Oh, yeah, of course. Why would you move Arizona down at all after a loss at Kansas without Darren Peterson?
Let me tell you why. Starting 23-0, the best start in Big 12 conference history by anybody in this league, surpassing KU's 22-0 start in the 96-97 season, was Arizona. I know they lost this week in Allen Fieldhouse. I know they've played a lighter schedule in Big 12 play to this point, but they have been so dominant on both ends of the floor. And Koa Pete goes 2 for 11. Braden Burries did his thing, but Jaden Bradley wasn't great shooting the basketball on the road in Allen Fieldhouse. I felt like that loss for Arizona, and this isn't meant to take away from Kansas's win, because I do think KU's playing like a top 5 team. Was more environment, just key moments. That game could have gone either way. I still have Arizona at number 1. I can't look past their 6 top 25 wins.
All right, guys, so your random power ranking of the day today will be the worst trades of all time. I have a feeling that a certain fan base in Dallas is going to not like this too much, but take it away, guys.
I would disagree. History has...
There's been a lot of bad trades.
I didn't say it was the worst. I just said they're not going to like it very much.
I've got a Dallas being on the right side of a trade in my top 5.
As do I.
And it's National Don't Cry Over Spilled Milk Day?
Yes, today is National Don't Cry Over Spilled Milk Day. No regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
Bad trades just are bad trades. What are you going to do? They happen.
They happen. It's a fresh start, Taman. All right, who do you have at number 5?
I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns and Houston Texans Deshaun Watson trade back in 2022. My God, is this a bad trade. 3 first-round picks plus additional mid-round picks, as if the 3 first-round picks weren't enough. And the cherry on top was the $230 million fully guaranteed contract.
$200 million.
Fully guaranteed?
Fully guaranteed while he's in the middle of an investigation.
You could count on one hand the amount of snaps that Deshaun Watson has played since this trade. Deshaun Watson was, at one point, one of the top young stars of this league, but yeah, that's no longer the case and has been for quite some time, especially given, all the sexual assault allegations. So, Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns, Houston Texans trade, number 5 on my list.
Yeah, that was bad. All right, number 5 for me is Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to the Brooklyn Nets in 2013. The Nets acquired Garnett, KG, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry. They also sent 3 unprotected first-round picks and a 2017 first-round pick swap to Boston. Those eventually became Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Colin Sexton, who Boston later traded for more draft picks, resulted in another NBA championship.
Number 4.
All right, number 4. I'm trying to make sure I have room for all of these because there's some bangers. There are some bangers. Number 4 for me is the Herschel Walker trade. See, Taman was focused on the Luka Doncic trade, but he forgot that basically the 90s Cowboys were built on the Herschel Walker trade in 1989 when the Cowboys traded Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings and basically received the picks that led to Emmitt Smith, Russell Maryland, and Darren Woodson. Not bad.
Not bad.
And by the way, that doesn't even fully cover all of the picks, but those are just 3 of the highlights of the players involved. So yeah, the Cowboys got Jesse Solomon, David Howard, Isaac Holt, Alex Stewart, and a haul of Minnesota picks that became Emmitt Smith, Russell Maryland, and Darren Woodson. One of the worst trades of all time, certainly. The Herschel Walker trade, number 4 on my list.
Very much overlooked. Great pick. I've got the Ricky Williams trade at number 4,
Ooh, yeah.
1999, when the Saints traded their 1999 first, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh round picks, plus their first and third round picks in 2000 to the then Washington Redskins for Ricky Williams.
Traded their entire draft.
2 drafts, essentially, and Mike Ditka was fired after the 2000 season when the Saints went 3-13 in 1999. Ricky Williams was playing for a different team like 3 years later and just never cut it in the NFL, the former Texas Longhorns running back.
Number 3.
Number 3?
No, I know. I'm, again, just trying to make sure I leave room for the most important one that I've got to make sure I get to. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put the Kobe Bryant trade here, number 3. The 1996 trade that sent Kobe Bryant, who was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets to the Los Angeles Lakers, the 13th overall pick. They traded him straight up for Vlade Divac, which is remarkable. Now, look, who knows if Kobe would have ever played for Charlotte? That was part of the impetus for the trade. But if I'm Charlotte, I'm making him force that issue. Yeah, Kobe Bryant, one of the great all-time players, traded for Vlade Divac on draft day. That's one of the worst of all time.
Totally agree. Number 3 for me is Paul George to the Clippers in 2019 when the Clippers sent Gilgeous-Alexander, Gallinari, 5 first-round picks, 2 pick swaps for essentially Paul George. $1 billion draft picks. George was a 3-time All-Star in L.A., but SGA became the one of just 4 players to win like MVP, a championship, be first-team All-NBA, an All-Star Game MVP, like just a bunch of accolades all in the same season. The Paul George trade in 2019 is number 3 on my list.
Number 2.
Yeah, there's some bangers in the NBA. The Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trade that you just referenced for me is number 2. And quite frankly, for Mavericks fans, if not for this trade, you'd be on this list. So thank the heavens the Clippers are the Clippers. And by the way, the Mavs have also been on the right side of trades. Remember trading Robert Tractor Trailer for Dirk Nowitzki?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, imagine trading a future MVP and face of the league, and that not even being the headline. 5 first-round picks? As if Shea wasn't enough. It traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and 5 first-round picks. By the way, the Thunder still have first-round picks to use on that trade. My God, that's bad.
I don't understand why NBA franchises just continue to give their first-round picks to the Thunder. I mean, this has been like a decade plus that they've been just rattling off trade after trade. They broke up Westbrook and Durant and James Harden for $1 billion picks. They did it again in 2019.
Yeah, it's wild.
Number 1.
Oh, wait, I didn't say my number 2. Number 2 for me is your Herschel Walker trade. You noted that was 1989. Minnesota sent 5 players, 6 draft picks that essentially built the Cowboys dynasty with all those picks because they had guys in the trenches with Russell Maryland. They drafted Emmitt Smith. They hit on a lot of those draft picks, and they wouldn't have had them had it not been for this trade. So, like, you think about the Cowboys' run in the 90s, it was built from the Herschel Walker trade. That's number 2 on my list.
Number 1.
Babe Ruth.
The Babe.
1919. The Boston Red Sox sent Babe Ruth to the Yankees. The Red Sox received cash. They traded the greatest baseball player of all time for roughly $100,000. Yeah.
$100K.
Yeah.
Now, back then, that's a lot of money, but I get it.
Sure, yeah.
Babe Ruth.
Curse of the Bambino. The Red Sox, by the way, have had some banger bad trades. They traded Jeff Bagwell for a reliever named Larry Anderson to the Houston Astros. But yeah, this one's got to be the worst trade of all time. Still, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, the Babe Ruth trade, number 1.
When we put this list together, this had to be my number 1 from the get-go. It is the Kobe Bryant trade on draft day. 1996.
Babe Ruth doesn't even crack your top 5?
No, I missed Babe, all right? It's fine. Kobe Bryant went on to be a 5-time NBA champ, 18-time All-Star, MVP, 33,000-plus career points. Meanwhile, Vlade Divac played just 2 seasons in Charlotte before he left.
Didn't he rejoin the Lakers, too?
Pretty sure. Maybe that was Powell.
Yeah.
But one of the two. All right, that's a wrap. Our Big 12 today power rankings. We do it every Wednesday. Coming up next, we dip over to baseball with Mike Rooney, college baseball analyst for ESPN and D1Baseball.com. After this timeout, we are powered by Modelo. You're listening to us on exclusively on TuneIn, and you are watching us on Big 12 Studios.
But they're really thin at that forward spot. They have a lot of guards and a lot of centers.
Cue in and see how that goes next year as well.
Well, she's loving the defense from her Wildcats right now. For Cincinnati, into a deep shot clock. Bird banks it in on a bit of a scrambled defensive play at the end of it for Arizona.
So it will be very interesting to see how she plays with these 2 fouls, because there's still so much time in this first half. See how she does guard.
Zugapong getting on her players a little bit here. Crawford knocks it away up top, and an over-the-head pass to find Jackson up ahead. What a play there for Cincinnati. 3 fouls for Adebanjo, along with Sugapong and Tremail, who both have 3 as well. That's a crafty finish. Tremail on the other side of the rim. Wildcats not going away without a fight. They're outscoring Cincinnati in this third, and they get a little bit closer on the Sugapong 3.
Definitely. I feel like she's made a big jump this season. Even in her confidence and the way she looks at the basket, it's been very fun to watch to see her growth from last season to this season.
When they flow, when they're switching, when they're following a game plan, she feels that directly translates to this team's offense. And Cardin grabs the offensive rebound, but Kitchens a great steal in the corner. And she gives it right back. A lazy pass leads to an easy 2 for Crawford. Now the fight was evident for Arizona in the second half today, but down a few key players, they put themselves behind the 8 ball, and Cincinnati ends up winning it 77-61.
Heard exclusively on Big 12 Radio, on TuneIn, watching us on Big 12 Studios, the Big 12 Fast Channel. We welcome in Mike Rooney, college baseball analyst, to preview the Big 12 slate. It gets started, college baseball on Friday. Hey, Mike, good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Great, man. Fired up for the season. When you look at the Big 12 baseball preseason poll, I guess we can start there. TCU, the preseason favorite to win the league, followed by Arizona, West Virginia, Arizona State, and then Kansas and Oklahoma State tied for fifth. Just your thoughts on the preseason poll and some teams that'll be at the top.
Yeah, it was hard to do. That's the greatest compliment I think we could give the Big 12. It was, TCU's pretty obvious because you can make an argument it's the best sophomore class in the country, and those kids all played as freshmen. They were star players. Sawyer Stroh-Snyder is the most famous of that group. But, man, trying to figure out who's number two and then, separating that middle pack. I don't think last year the Big 12 getting 8 teams in the tournament was an aberration. I think that's – and I would say the bottom of the league, the air quotes bottom, has gotten even better. BYU's really old, and, Utah's got a legit ace in Coulter McAnally. So, I think the league's going to be a blast this year. Unless I'm a coach trying to keep my hairline, that maybe not as fun for that group.
What about at the top? I mean, do you see potential Omaha teams here, or an Omaha team?
I think if you're one of the top 5 teams in this league, you're an Omaha threat. I think Arizona's probably the perfect example where they didn't run away with the league. They're in that kind of top 4 or 5 group last year, and I think I could make an argument that Arizona's road to Omaha was rougher than anybody's. They have to go to Eugene, beat a really good Oregon team, or at least win that regional, and then go through Chapel Hill, which was a team that a lot of us were saying could win the national title. So I do think if you're one of those first 5 teams, you're Omaha caliber. I think the hardest part, guys, is we don't know who those first 5 teams are. We think we know it's TCU, but the other group. Oklahoma State, if they stay healthy, that's an Omaha team. Arizona State's got as much raw talent as any roster in any league. We just don't know who their starting pitching is yet. So, I go up and down the list. That's the fun part of the league. The depth is really striking.
Mike, you said something about TCU that caught my attention with maybe the best sophomore class in the country. So, can you put into perspective what that group did last year as freshmen? And were these freshmen that would be the equivalent of like a 4 or 5-star recruit in football, or were these kind of under-the-radar kids that had big years?
I would say it's probably a little bit of both. I think and this is relevant in all college sports, but if I'm a head coach and I tell you guys, hey, like my strategy this year is I'm playing all freshmen, you wouldn't care if they were highly recruited or not. You'd be like, Runes, don't do that. Please don't do that for you and your family. Like, what are we doing here, right? But TCU, Kirk Saarloos and his staff did it and made the tournament. So not only did they survive it, they thrived and got to the tournament. And Stroh-Snyder could have been drafted out of high school, right? This kid looks like a Division I running back. He's 6'2", 200 plus pounds, left-handed hitter. He had a quadruple double last year, which I don't think I've ever seen in college baseball before. He had double-digit doubles, triples, home runs, and stolen bases. So, wow. That kind of athlete clearly can be drafted out of high school. Noah Franco was another one that's a 6'3", left-handed player with power and big velocity off the mound. He's a two-way guy. Nolan Traeger was probably the guy under the radar. He was their catcher, really became their everyday catcher. So, all those guys are back. Plus, you got Tommy Lepore smashing energy drinks on his face before he goes to the mound as their Friday night guy. And so they're awesome. Yeah, TCU is going to be fun to watch.
Give me some teams maybe further down this list. I mean, I know there's probably a ton of talk about is Dan Fitzgerald, at Kansas. Is this his last year there? Will he get an opportunity to go to the SEC next year? Who else are you excited about? That's maybe 5, 6, 7 in this preseason ranking.
Yeah, I'd say like KU's a good one to call out, or because Dan Fitz is just he's awesome. Like he's not going to just have opportunities within college baseball. He's going to get overtures from pro baseball,
wow.
In this new world. And so, but I think the beautiful part for Kansas is it's Fitz's program, right? Like him and his staff have built this to where it is right now, and they love it there. So I don't think teams are just going to be able to come in and just offer Fitz anything to leave. I think they genuinely love it there. For them, they do have to rebuild a lot of the roster. They've proven that they can do that, and they've got 2 star players. Dominic Vegley, their Friday night guy, he's been Friday night for this will be his 3rd year as their ace, and that's an incredible luxury. And their first baseman, Brady Ballinger, if anyone listening's not seen him play, Sean Casey-ish, college baseball Sean Casey, like left-handed, bat to ball skills with power, incredible personality. Dan Fitz tells a great story that when he exchanges the lineup cards the first game of a series, he warns the first base umpire about Brady Ballinger. He basically says, hey, whatever first baseman's talked to you the most so far this year, that record's about to be broken. Like the kid's really gregarious. And Kansas they'll be really fun just because they've got those 2 star players at the top of the roster.
We're excited to have Mike Rooney joining us here on Big 12 today. ESPN baseball analyst, writes for D1Baseball.com. But on the other end, some incredibly rotten news that you guys note about Arizona being without their All-American closer in Tony Pluta this season. He's going to require Tommy John surgery. Just what does that mean for Arizona, and how do they overcome that this season?
Yeah, I think I'm of many minds with Arizona. I think the days of doubting Chip Hale and his transition, Chip Hale, we got to remember, this was a big league manager, right? Like there's not that many humans that have held the position of major league manager. But the truth is most of the big league guys historically that have come to college baseball have struggled. That has not been the case for Chip Hale. 4 seasons, 4 NCAA tournaments. They've hosted a regional. They've been to Omaha. He's done a brilliant job. And this year's team needs to be led by the pitching. You've got Smith Bailey at the front. You've got Owen Kramkowski. But Tony Pluta at the back was going to be huge. I mean, they don't win the Chapel Hill Super Regional and go to Omaha without Tony Pluta. He's an incredible kid. He's 5'9". I'm not exaggerating, guys. He's literally an aerospace engineering major. I don't know how you can be that level of athlete and be an aerospace engineering major. Incredible kid, but it's a huge loss. Arizona does have great pitching. If there's any position group for them where they had depth, it was the bullpen. But I don't think any roster can afford to lose a kid and a pitcher the caliber of Tony Pluta.
How would you rank the conferences? I mean, the SEC at the top, I'm assuming. Where would the Big 12 be in the hierarchy?
I think so. The SEC, I think the ACC and the Big 12 are gaining on the SEC, but the problem is the SEC is not just standing in place, right? Like they're super invested in baseball, and they've won 7 of the last 8 national titles in baseball, which is really bonkers. And the SEC's even blockaded the finals. But I do think the era of NIL and the portal, which is those are 2 different things. We have to remind ourselves have changed it. It's been very interesting. 2 years ago, we had only ACC and SEC teams in Omaha. Last year, we had 7 different leagues represented. I mean, that's 2 outlier seasons back to back. I think the Big 12 can make an argument that they're right on par with the ACC. I think the depth of the Big 12 is actually superior to the ACC. I just think the teams at the top of the ACC have been more famous. And, losing Texas and Oklahoma, that changes the perspective of your league. But again, I thought last year was a brilliant start to this new version of the Big 12 with 8 teams in regionals, and those teams all showed really well, and the league just keeps getting better.
All right, Mike, before we let you go, you mentioned just how even this league is top to bottom. Who is a sleeper team for Mike Rooney?
I would say I'll give you a couple sleepers in different levels of the league. Oklahoma State's hard to call a sleeper because they've been famous, but they only won 30 games last year, and it was getting real dicey into the final weekend. They were hurt though. They battled through a lot of injuries. I think Oklahoma State, they're probably picked 5th, 6th. That's where you'd put them in the league. I think even from that position, this is an Omaha team. I love Oklahoma State's roster. They just found out they got Hudson Barrett back, which is huge. Gives them some real arm talent in their rotation. Texas Tech is the other team I'd give you. They finished 11th in the league last year, won 20 games, went 20-33. But it wasn't that long ago that Tim Tadlock was taking Tech to Omaha 4 out of 6 years.
Yeah.
I think this will be a big-time rebound season for Tech.
Yeah, could see it. Mike Rooney, college baseball analyst for ESPN, D1Baseball.com. Mike, appreciate you hopping on with us. Thank you.
Yep, you got it. See you guys.
Thank you.
Mike Rooney here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league.
Play fake.
Nice
over the middle. There's
going to work, but they need offense in the system. For Kansas State, it's about value time. They want to create some chaos. If you're Oklahoma State, you got to take care of the basketball and the sprint out of the gate. This strong start is O'Brien. This group has got to be good from the jump. And then
early slow start there. Sides driving in, trying to drop it off for Shekic, but she was in a hand fight with Egorot, and it's a turnover.
It's the right look if you're tearing sides, but this is what Oklahoma State is going to do.
It's been 11 at one point. Whiting had to do a lot herself, and she'll get a basket to get to double figures.
She's going to
pick ball, trying to run it to Hurd. Working on side, playing with 2 fouls. Hurd gets the whistle and the bucket.
You have to be in one of those top 4 in the brackets to be able to be a host. Right now, the only one in that list, TCU.
K-State's only hit 2 threes. Neither side has really seen that be a weapon. It's been the inside game. Hurd able to get around Spicer and lay it in. And Whiting handing off to sides. The ball knocked away by Whiting. A couple times she's done that here tonight. Now she'll drive and score, and Whiting's got 15.
And this is
Garcia drives, kicks, Klassen's a wide open 3. That's what she did against BYU multiple times on the dribble drive.
That one.
What a battle this has been here tonight in the Big 12, as we thought it might be. Garcia again, no look, bounce pass, Klassen's with a finish.
I think this will be a disappointing though performance for the Cowgirls, just as though they have felt like when the games in which they were making great progress and being able to put their foot on the gas.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. If you miss any of our interviews, we podcast on Apple, Spotify, right here. Tune in on demand. You're watching us on the Big 12 Fast Channel. Our Big 12 Game of the Week features Kansas at Iowa State. Men's basketball Saturday, 1 Eastern, noon Central. We are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo and Modelo Fan Rule number 49. Ari, I think you'll like this one because it's very passive-aggressive and leans into our passive-aggressive humor. Rule number 49, you remember slights from years ago like they happened yesterday.
Always. Have them tattooed on your body.
Never forget.
Never forget those slights.
Do you have any tattoos?
No.
If KU wins the national championship, I think we should make a bet. If KU wins the national championship, it's a little bit one-sided. You should get a tattoo.
They've won 2 since I went there.
Yeah, but I mean, they've won none since you've known me. I think a calf tat. Big old Jayhawk on the calf.
Yeah. Think about doing like barbed wire around my my bicep.
You should I would do the wheat. Like waving the wheat.
Yeah.
And then depending upon how fast you're running, it looks like you're waving the wheat.
That's a good one. And then I'd always have to run without a shirt on.
Well, have to. You don't already?
Despite being a very proud Jayhawk, there's probably nothing that I'd want written on my body forever.
That's fair.
Just kind of my take on it.
I don't hate your take.
And I'm not judgmental of tattoos. I'm judgmental of certain tattoos.
Big tat guy. Big tat guy.
Like if you have a tattoo, I'm not going to be judgmental. There are certain tattoos, though, I reserve the right to be judgmental about.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Don't hate it.
But not your tattoo. Yours are great.
Thanks. The arm sleeves.
Definitely not.
They're working for me.
Definitely not.
They're working for me.
Definitely not one I'm judgmental on.
All right, this is our seed report.
What do you have? Bad Boys for Life on your right shoulder?
Bracketology. Yeah, it's actually upper back just across the back. Really like a calligraphy font. That's the way to go.
Yeah, it's the way to go.
It has to be. Bad Boys for Life with the number 4.
Of course.
Has to be.
And LYFE.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We abbreviate.
Yeah.
We abbreviate. All right. Is
that abbreviation or incorrect spelling?
It's in both.
You can't abbreviate this word with the same amount of letters, can you?
I think you can.
Okay.
I tell ChatGPT to abbreviate everything. There's a lot of letters and words that, frankly, we don't need.
That's right.
We don't need them. They serve no purpose. Get them out of there.
Get them out of there.
Okay?
It's a waste of time.
Basically my own language that I'm working with here. All right, before we get to our names to know, Impact Big 12 wide receiver newcomers, not necessarily transfers, but newcomers. And we're going to be talking with Eric Ward, the former Texas Tech wide receiver. He'll join us next hour before the big announcement, which comes at 10 Central Time. The big announcement surrounding the Big 12 men's basketball tournament.
Make sure you are close to either Tune In or Big 12 Studios at 10 o'clock because we're going to give you the big news that everybody is waiting for with bated breath. I've seen a lot of people guessing.
Yeah. And they're all wrong.
They're all wrong.
That's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best part. If you know, you know. And they're all wrong.
Yeah. Had a buddy text me and said, is Notre Dame joining the Big 12?
Is Notre Dame
No.
joining the Big 12?
Just spoiler alert, no.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's priceless. They're playing. They schedule one Big 12 opponent, and all of a sudden they're in the league.
In the league. That's the big announcement.
I'm here for it. Hey, when we were talking with Mike O'Donnell earlier, you noted that the conversation that you had with Joe Lunardi yesterday, he said Arizona's locked into a 1 seed in the West.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter if they're the top overall seed. That's got to be like a sigh of relief for Arizona fans, knowing that there's really not any other contenders in terms of that particular region.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because, it goes down to who would want the West, and there's no other teams that would be 1 seeds or even consideration for 1 seeds that would want the West. I mean, Gonzaga, who just lost to Portland.
You can't lose to Portland and be a 1 seed. That's
Right.
Modelo Fan Rule 64.
No, exactly. I think it's 164. but I haven't committed them fully to memory yet. So yeah, I mean, I think like the Midwest and East are going to be very interesting, and when you look ahead, like Houston getting the 2 seed in the South would also be huge, because I'm not sure Houston can be in position to get a 1 seed, and whoever gets the 1 seed in the South with Houston in the 2, eat your heart out. So yeah, but ultimately, yeah, Lenardi basically said, that wherever Arizona finishes as a 1 seed, they're going to get the West. So, you think about wanting the number 1 overall seed, for the ability to get the region that you want, and in the case of Arizona, they're going to get it regardless.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how the Big 12 men's basketball tournament works in terms of what the bracket looks like?
So the top 4 seeds get a double bye?
Double bye. The tournament starts on Tuesday, March 10th. The top 4 seeds don't play until the quarterfinals on Thursday.
And then the top 8 seeds get a bye?
A single bye, 6 through 8. I'm sorry, 5 through 8, yes.
So basically you have, 16 playing 12?
9.
9, okay, yeah, thank you. My math is all screwy.
This is my big math guy.
16 plays
math
9,
boy.
15 plays 7. I'll go the other way.
Just pump the brakes.
Sorry.
9, 16, 12, 13, 10, 15, and 11 plays 14.
Say it slower, though.
9 plays 16, 12 plays 13, 10 plays 15, and 11 plays 14.
So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That'd be like, I guess, Utah playing TCU, K-State playing Oklahoma State, Arizona State playing Cincinnati, and Baylor playing Colorado.
Correct. And why I think the Big 12 seeding is going to matter more than ever this year, and it matters not so much for the teams that get the top 4 spots. I know everybody wants that, but like this league is so top-heavy this year with just the dominant teams at the top of the league. But that 7 through 9 or 10 is fascinating to me, because if you're an 8 seed, you get a bye. If you're a 9 seed, you have to play either probably Utah or Kansas State on that first day in Kansas City. You're tired going into that 8-9 matchup the next day. So West Virginia's currently 7th. BYU's currently 8th. TCU is currently 9th. UCF right now would be the 6th seed. So like West Virginia, TCU are really starting to battle. And then if Cincinnati beats K-State, they're in the conversation for middle of the pack. Oklahoma State and TCU play on Saturday. Seeding is very much now on the line when it comes to this March tournament.
And I think what's interesting too is, and I don't know if this is more of a recent phenomenon or if this has always been the case, but it felt like results of the conference tournaments used to matter a lot more in terms of seeding and getting to the tournament. It feels like they matter a lot less now. Almost like what you do in the Big 12 tournament doesn't matter at all. There's no winning your way into the tournament unless you win the field, unless you win the Big 12 tournament and you weren't, already in the field. I think Joe Lunardi has 7 Big 12 teams getting in. And I don't know that the Big 12 is going to get any more than that. I'd like to be optimistic and say that they get 8 or 9, but it feels like when you look at 7, 8, 9, 10, like these are all the teams we've been talking about that are on the bubble right now. And maybe UCF's the cut line, so it's West Virginia, TCU, Oklahoma State, Baylor maybe. But they're all kind of trading bad losses and interesting wins with each other. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not like, Oklahoma State had that big win over BYU, but then they go and lose to Arizona State.
Right. Right now, his last 4 in, and this is not updated to reflect last night's outcomes.
Right, it was updated yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly before we had Joe Lunardi on.
Mm-hmm. So he's got Texas, Miami, San Diego State, and New Mexico's last 4 in. But he doesn't have any Big 12 teams in the first 4 out. He's got 2 Big 12 teams. No, just 1.
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State is his next 4 out. So these,
and that doesn't count. That didn't count losing to Arizona State last night.
Right. So they're next 4 of the next 4.
That was following the BYU win.
Mm-hmm. Now TCU, I think, will enter his next 4 out. But unless somebody really emerges from that pack, it's going to be tough.
Well,
for Big 12.
Compare Oklahoma State and TCU's resumes.
it's impossible.
Oklahoma State has one big quad one win. TCU has 4. TCU lost to New Orleans. Oklahoma State doesn't have any bad losses like that. So I would imagine in that case, both of those teams get left out. And that's where, like, I'm starting to think more and more that 7 is the number. And look, it's a good 7. It's not like as good of a number from a total number perspective that you'd like, but those are 7 teams that could all win games.
Right.
And probably 5 of the 7 could get not past the second weekend.
Exactly. Like, 7's okay if 6 are in the Sweet 16. Like, that's really what matters. Or multiple teams in the Final Four.
But it feels to me more and more like that's where it's trending, because you just have these, like Oklahoma State couldn't lose to Arizona State last night. Like, that was just a bad loss for their ability to be a tournament team. And that, it just feels like teams in that category, TCU, Oklahoma State, Baylor, West Virginia, they just keep trading out good wins for bad wins, bad losses, good, like they just can't figure out a way to get on a stretch to really solidify their position as tournament teams.
To me, the Big 12 tournament, based off of how far these teams are removed or close to the cut line, those games could potentially matter. For West Virginia last year, remember, they lost on the first day of the Big 12 tournament to Colorado. And that ultimately knocked them out of the NCAA tournament. And they had won 3 of their last 4 and 4 of their last 6 going into the tournament. I believe if they beat Colorado, they're in. They were the first team out. But will Oklahoma State or Baylor or TCU or even Cincinnati be close enough to the cut line where a win matters enough to push them in? That's what remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. And again, when we looked at Oklahoma State's schedule yesterday, it was like, oh, I see a bunch of wins there, and then they go and lose to Arizona State. And that's like, it just seems to be this treadmill of that. Like the middle of the Big 12 is what it is. It's mid, it's mediocre, and mediocre isn't good enough to get you into the NCAA tournament. Period. The Big 12 has had bouts of being, really good top to bottom. This is a year where the Big 12 is much more top heavy.
5-star drop of mid, by the way, mid-sentence. Very
Thank you.
Gen Z of you.
Thank you.
Here for it. All right, coming up next, names to know. Impact Big 12 wide receiver newcomers. We each have our top 5 before we grab Eric Ward, the former Texas Tech wide receiver who played for the Red Raiders from 2009 to 2013. He'll join us around 9:20 Central Time. That's Ari. I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Conversation of National Freshman of the Year.
Absolutely. Jumping up with Sarah Sonogo of Tech, and Kansas will have it.
Just a lot of elite talent offensively. When you talk about Julia Davis, you talk about Samaya Nichols, Bailey Maupin, because that is a great finish right around the rim with the left hand by Sarah Sonogo.
Williams can't get it. Here comes Sydney Love, the transfer from UTSA. Maupin gets a good look at the 3 and buries the 3.
Well,
her 53rd of the season.
She bleeds Texas Tech. Women's basketball, her and Krista Gerlich, their relationship. She passed her on the scoring list. What an unbelievable shot there from Bailey Maupin.
There you go. The first field goal made by Nichols tonight.
I thank you. Snutta Collins in that type of matchup. If she would have settled for a contested Texas Tech right now, look, again, play the game without fouling. Try and force a contested shot.
Harshaw launches the 3 and buries it.
It's a big shot.
Copeland working on Love, who's done a nice job tonight for the Lady Raiders. Nichols out front. That's going to be an offensive foul.
An illegal. Need some water.
Love. With 5 seconds, no. Maupin will track down the loose ball, and that's going to do it. So Texas Tech will win their 23rd game of the season, go to 10-3 in conference play.
Back inside Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, and you're watching us on the Big 12 Fast channel, Big 12 Studios. You can catch us each and every weekday live on YouTube, on your Roku device, Amazon Prime Video, DirecTV, many other places. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. And here in this last hour, we have launched our Names to Know, Impact Big 12 newcomers. We each pick our top 5. And we go through a different position each and every day. We did tight ends yesterday. #1 Super Bowl commercial, by the way. Today we hit wide receivers. And Eric Ward, the Texas Tech Red Raider who played from 2009 to 2013, will be with us here in about 20 minutes on the program before the big announcement at 10 a.m. Central Time sharp here on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios surrounding the Big 12 men's basketball tournament in Kansas City. So, Ari Timken, you have the floor. Names to know. Take us through your top newcomers in the Big 12 at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and this was no easy list to put together because I think that there are obviously some impact transfers that are going to step in here, but also some freshmen. And so number 5 on my list is a true freshman, Tyron Horns from Sarasota, Florida, the UCF 4-star freshman, 6 foot, 175, 185 pounds. But, I mean, one of the top receivers, according to 24/7 and On3's recruiting rankings. You know, a guy in high school that had 2,500 yards receiving. And when you look to me at UCF's wide receiving room, I mean, Dwayne Thomas Jr. was their leading receiver. Who? Do you remember Dwayne Thomas Jr.? 520 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns. So I think it's the context of here's a big-time talented player that I think is ready to play and is in a spot to where UCF needs the immediate production. And I think, like, coaches are probably now in position to want to play these guys immediately so that they don't leave via the portal. And look, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. They could go and produce and then leave either way. But I just think he's set up to contribute right away. He's a big-time player, 4-star recruit. And I think he can absolutely contribute and play right away, as we saw with that true freshman from Miami this past year. Number 4 on my list is a transfer, and one of 2 Arizona State transfer wide receivers on my list. Reed Harris steps in from Boston College. Harris, last year at BC, a lot of production, 39 for 673 and 5 touchdowns. But he's a big-time target, 6'5", red zone, explosive play profile. I think is going to compete for major share right away for a team that's losing Jordan Tyson and needs impactful wide receivers. So Reed Harris, the Boston College transfer, steps in for me at number 4. Another freshman for number 3 on my list, London Smith, the Baylor freshman, who another guy that's not exactly going to blow you away with his size, 6 foot, 180 pounds. But when you look at the clearest path towards production right away, it's certainly Baylor's pass catching room. It's a reason why I had their tight end on my list, their new tight end on my list as well. But I mean, I think he's, got the measurables and a guy that could be a multi-year producer. One of the top receivers in the recruiting rankings, and a guy that topped 3,500 receiving yards in his high school career, 42 touchdowns. So just ridiculous production in high school. And again, the fact that top 4 wideouts graduated. So I think it's the perfect freshman can play a right away environment, and a guy that I think will be set up to play right away in London Smith. Then number 2 on my list is the North Texas transfer for Oklahoma State. One of them, Wyatt Young, is number 2 on my list. Wyatt Young, true alpha production from last year at North Texas, who transfers into Oklahoma State with his quarterback. 70 catches, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns last year. So I mean, talk about an immediate need and production that follows that. So Wyatt Young, I think, big target, steps in. One of many North Texas transfers, and a guy that I think will have a huge impact at Oklahoma State year one, especially being with his quarterback at Drew Mastemaker. And then number 1 is a Big 12 to Big 12 transfer. It's another Arizona State guy. It is Omarion Miller, somebody we've talked about already on the show today. He is probably, from a combination of Power 4 level production and most production, the biggest newcomer for any Big 12 school because, Wyatt Young brings a ton of production over. Danny Scudero is a guy that transferred from San Jose State to Colorado that has a ton of production. But in terms of being Power 4 level production, Amarian Miller has it. 45 for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Big play efficiency. Probably didn't get taken advantage of enough last year, Colorado, because of the quarterback issues that they had, but a guy that's ready to explode. I love both additions of Reed Harris and Amarian Miller. I think they complement each other very well. That's my list. I've got 2 freshmen, Tyron Horns and London Smith. Could have added Mosley as well in terms of potential impactful transfers. He signed with Arizona as a 4-star. Chase Campbell's a 4-star that signed with Tech. But kind of a mix of experienced players. But I put more stock into Amarian Miller's production at the Power 4 versus Wyatt Young's production, which was huge at North Texas in the group of 6 level.
Man, I love the list. I love the variety. Arizona State loaded up at the position. Dwayne Thomas Jr., by the way, who led UCF in receiving yards this past season, 2 years ago was playing at Charlotte, where he caught 6 passes.
Yeah.
So UCF needed an upgrade at wide receiver, and it appears that they've done that. All right, my list, top 5 impact. I went transfers only at the wide receiver position. Number 5 on my list, a transfer from San Jose State to Colorado. Danny Scudero, 5'9", 174 pounds, led the nation, all of FBS, in receiving yards last year. Had 1,300 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns. He was first-team All-Mountain West, Biletnikoff Award semifinalist, announced his commitment to Colorado on January 4th. The nation's top yardage getter, I think, will be a nice add in Boulder.
By the way, if you had just said his name is Danny Scudero, what do you know about him? Not to profile, but I would have been like, probably a shifty inside slot receiver, 5'8", 5'9". I mean, the name's a dead giveaway, is it not?
Is he Danny Amendola's clone?
There's no
We'll
Danny.
find out.
There's no Danny Scudero that's 6'5", possession, true X. You know, it's just not a 6'5", 215-pound receiver name.
Yeah, 5'9", 175 pounds, a slot guy.
Fits the profile.
All right, number 4 on my list of the top 5 impactful transfers at wide receiver is who I think may have been the number 1 receiver at Auburn last year, and it's not Cam Coleman, who signed with Texas. It's Malcolm Simmons, who transfers from Auburn to Texas Tech. In his sophomore year last year, he only caught 25 passes, but he had almost 500 yards receiving. He averaged over 18 yards per catch, and the Auburn passing game was a total disaster. His stats were not that much different than Cam Coleman's. 6 foot, 180 pounds, originally from Alabama. Big play potential. Should be a really nice fit for Texas Tech at the wide receiver position.
Love that.
All right, number 3 on my list is I go back out to
By the way, do we have anybody the same?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
Okay.
We do, but not in this spot.
Yeah, you said back out to Boulder. I didn't have anybody from Colorado, so yeah.
At number 3, I go DeAndre Moore Jr., the transfer from Texas to Colorado, former 4-star recruit, spent 3 years in Austin, limited action in 2023, ended up serving his red shirt, but then the last 2 years he's caught almost 40 passes in back-to-back seasons, had over 500 yards receiving this year, 4 touchdowns, had multiple touchdown games this season. He was on the Tyler Rose Award watch list throughout the year. He's been consistent, he's been productive, and he's been one of Texas's top wide receivers. That's a really nice add for the Colorado Buffaloes. At number 2, this is where our lists appear to be the same. At number 2 for me is Wyatt Young from North Texas to Oklahoma State. 6 foot, 195 pounds. He's physical, he's wiry, he's an exceptional route runner. He only caught 18 passes 2 years ago. This past year, he blows up. Had over 70 grabs, over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. He was first team All-AAC. He was also an All-American. And he's a guy who didn't play receiver in high school. He played quarterback.
Wow.
And so Eric Morris says he's going to be a pro. Like, he has that type of potential. NFL scouts already love him. He'll be a junior this year, originally from Katy, Texas, a 2-star recruit. Number 2 on my list. Number 1, for me, same guy you had, Amarian Miller, from Colorado to Arizona State. Very Jordan Tyson-esque in terms of they both start their careers at Colorado. They're both about 6'2", 195 pounds. Former 4-star, originally committed to LSU, then goes to Nebraska, and then Colorado, and now Arizona State. Second team All Big 12 last year, over 800 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. And again, he was playing within an offense that really struggled to throw the football, especially downfield, and he still averaged over 18 yards per catch. He is going to thrive in that Arizona State offense.
Yeah, really interesting. You and I both had the same 1 and 2, and my rationale for why I put Miller over Young is just based on where they produced and where they had that production. But love the variety that both you and I have. I had 2 Arizona State receivers. You added 2 Colorado receivers. I have UCF and Baylor on my list. You have Tech. There's a couple of guys we could have had for Tech, including Malcolm Simmons. How about Kenny Johnson, the Pitt transfer, 48 for 695 and 5 touchdowns last year, plus a guy that is a huge threat in the return game. Very under the radar ad for Texas Tech. And then I also mentioned Chase Campbell already, but he's a top tier 4-star wide receiver that Texas Tech is bringing in terms of newcomers. Also Miles Coleman, another guy at Oklahoma State that transfers in from North Texas.
And he has freakish, elite speed. Like I think he had the NCAA high on GPS time this season. He can fly.
So, there's a lot of newcomers that are really intriguing in the Big 12 at this position. I think this was a really difficult list to put together. You kind of referenced this because there's no right or wrong answers here. It's sort of like, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? And I think Omarion Miller could have very well been it, but when we look at the end of the season, who knows from a yardage and a production standpoint who'll be at the top of that list. It might be somebody that's a returning player. It might be somebody that's a newcomer. So that's what's fun about these lists.
The thing about like Colorado and Oklahoma State with Wyatt Young at Oklahoma State, he transfers with his quarterback. So there's familiarity there with Drew Mestemaker, who is going to shine. And I believe Oklahoma State offensively, I don't know what they look like defensively, but offensively they will light the world on fire in Eric Morris's first year. They are that dynamic and that talented. And just the guy's a quarterback guru. Like the growth that you'll see from Mestemaker from last year to this year, he has an incredibly high ceiling. So Wyatt Young's going to have a ton of catches. Like his stats are going to be insane. But then also I noted the guys at Colorado because remember Colorado has a new offensive coordinator. And he was at Sacramento State and then he was at UNLV. And it's that really
Brendan Marion.
Is it the run and shoot?
Yeah, kind of.
I can't remember the terminology for it, but it's a lot of guys are lining up all over the place. And you'll have multiple running backs on the field at the same time, like not fullback, tailback, like sidecar. They do a ton of RPO stuff. It's really dynamic, and they were setting records at Sac State and UNLV under his leadership. So, I can't emphasize enough how different those two teams are going to look offensively.
The go-go offense.
Go. That's it.
It's kind of a variation of the run and shoot.
What can you tell me about the go-go?
It just takes advantage of space. It's very, it is very much a run-heavy offense, and then I think that's where the run and shoot principles come in. It is extremely exciting. It's a lot of inside run or wide zone counter, so they want to get your momentum going inside, and then they run you to the outside, and then when you go to the outside, they run inside. Right, so it's kind of a multiple versatile run style, and running back shines.
And Marion was at UNLV last year, correct?
Well, he was the head coach at Sac State.
He was the head coach at Sac State. Okay.
So he left a head coaching job to become the offensive coordinator for Deion.
So it would have been 2024 that he was the OC at UNLV. Their quarterback was Haj Malik Williams, who had 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a quarterback rating that was tops in the league at 145. And then just trying to see, rushing, they had 3 running backs, 3 guys over 600 yards, and then receiving, they had a 1,000-yard receiver in Ricky White. So they filled up the stat sheet.
Well, and then they're also their running backs are major threats out of the backfield to catch the football.
That checks out. All right, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Coming up next, we talk Big 12 wide receivers with Eric Ward, the former Texas Tech wideout. Played in Lubbock from 2009 to 2013. He'll join us next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio watching us on Big 12 Studios.
See significant playing time. Tip, and we are underway inside Fort Dixon. It's won by.
You see that early help, Rob? Here it comes already.
Oh, nice cut and the slam. Toulson, frogs are up.
They're in a good spot if they can wake up.
Here's Punch. Can he wake up? Yes, he can. Toulson from 3, short. Punch saves it. Back to Toulson. And in goes Glass. And the lead is for the Horned Frogs. That's where they've had their success.
TCU 0 for 7 from 3 in the second half.
Pierre. Nice backdoor cut. Robinson has been magical with the start. Pierre, not afraid to shoot it. And that's a tough one, but he gets it to go. 1-point game. Timeout, Dixon. Back to Pierre. 12 on the shot clock. Three-pointer, Pierre. Got it! The lead is TCU's. Lipsy with the ball. Lipsy turns it over. Robinson slams it home. Frogs by 4. Toulson misses that one. It's academic. The Frogs upset number 5 Iowa State, and they keep their dirty hopes alive.
Back inside Big 12 today, here on Big 12 Radio. Alongside Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. Our show is powered by our friends at Modelo. Names to know, Impact Big 12 wide receiver newcomers. Ari and I just had our top 5. We welcome in a guy who had almost 3,000 career receiving yards at Texas Tech when he played from 2010 to 2013, Eric Ward. Hey, Eric, good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
Man, we're good. Want to start with, give our audience an update on what you're doing. Are you coaching in Lubbock?
Yes, sir. I'm the head football coach at Estacado High School in Lubbock, Texas.
And what does your offense look like? Is this Texas Tech of old offensively with the wide open spread that you played in?
It's a variation of it. You know, I was fortunate enough to play for Lincoln Riley, Sonny Cumbie, Neil Brown, just to name a few, and, just taking staples out of their offense and incorporating it in my own. So it's a variation of all those coaches and what they do.
One of the things we're doing today is breaking down the wide receiver position and some of the newcomers out of the Big 12, and Tech, has a bunch of those. What do you see at the wide receiver position now that may be a little bit different from when you played?
I see, there's a less physicality, across the stage of college football, I think. What I would like to see more of is just relentless receivers going out there and blocking from whistle to whistle, selling themselves out for their teammates. That's the type of approach that we had when we played at Tech. It's just in general across the board when I watch college football, just more pride in just that receiver position when you don't have the glory, when you don't have that football in your hand, and just going out there and selling out for your teammates.
Yeah, so Eric, have you seen a downtick in terms of blocking at that position? Because, you bring up a fascinating talking point. When people think about, like, Texas Tech and all the great receivers over the years and all those yards, the career that you had, I think generally people don't think about wide receivers as blockers.
They really don't, but if you, date back to blockers that I actually revered, in terms of wide receiver blockers is, Michael Crabtree was a relentless wide receiver because he blocked for his teammates, which opened up things in a passing game for him.
Yeah, what do they say? No block, no rock?
No block, no rock. And that also tells you what type of teammate you are, what type of kids you're coaching. If you're a coach and you have to coach athletes to go out there and block, it tells you what type of person they are. We look for dogs, across the board. If I got a kid that's going out there flying from whistle to whistle for 4 to 6 seconds and, blocking their butts off when they don't have the ball, it's my job as a coach to reward that kid because he's being a selfless teammate.
Yeah, and obviously that too, but also you don't want to show the defense what you're doing. And, if you've got a wide receiver that's only going to, exert full effort when they're, going to get the ball or when they're running routes, you're not really camouflaging to the defense what you're doing. You're being obvious and you're a tell. And that's, aside from, as you mentioned, being a bad teammate, it's also you're also giving up, the play.
No, absolutely. You want to make every play look the same. So those defenders, the DBs or linebackers or whoever the case you may be blocking, you don't want them to get tipped off on the play, but you want to make it all look the same where you can make a slant route look like a run, not a RPO, if you will. But if you make a slant route look like a route and you turn it into a blocker, that DB has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, great point.
Eric, when you watch college football and the defenses that we saw in the college football playoff and everything Texas Tech did in this league, and there were a handful of other teams that were dominant on that side of the ball, have we seen a shift where defenses are ahead of offenses in this era of FBS football, and how does it shift back?
I would say, when everyone is doing the same things or the variation of the same things, a lot of football is a reflection of the spread offense. And so when you see that week in and week out, defenses evolve to that, and it's easier to guard. It turns into minimizing mistakes at that point. And so I just think the game, it evolves every year. It evolves every week. So I think the game is more geared toward running, and that may change next year. So it depends on the year, honestly, and the hot trend. But I think football at this point, everyone is almost doing exactly the same thing. So it's easier for defenses to adjust now.
Yeah.
You know, back then in the air raid era, you know, when you're throwing a ball 80 or 90 times a game, you know, at that time it was new, but defenses adjusted to that overtime because everybody started following that trend. So I believe in the trend of football. You know, what's ever trending, offenses are going to adjust to it and try that trend, and defenses also going to adjust to it on how to stop it.
We're talking here, Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver, now the head football coach at Estacado High School in Lubbock. And I think just that perspective is really unique here from the standpoint of, you know, we've evaluated 5 newcomers into the Big 12 at the wide receiver position. And on my list, I had 2 incoming freshmen that I think, you know, could be impactful players. You know, one of the things, if you were a college coach, like what would you be looking for in freshmen or out of the portal at the wide receiver position? You know, as we sort of break this stuff down, we're looking at production or we're looking at measurables. You know, what are some of the things from a coach's eye that you would be looking at in terms of evaluating players?
Toughness. I think toughness is first and foremost, and it's very essential when you're a wide receiver. Toughness, and that equates to mental toughness and physical toughness. Football is, you know, it's a demanding game. So does this individual I'm recruiting or coaching, does he get down on himself when he make a bad play? Because, you know, you got to have short-term memory when you're playing football, especially receiver. Does he sell out for his teammates? Is he hard-nosed? Like, is he going to do whatever he needs to do to get us to the goal? And that's always to be successful. And so I'm always looking for toughness first. You know, I can teach a receiver the rest, the skills and fundamentals of the position, but I want to know if he's tough.
How do you find that? What do you look for?
You know, it's also one of those things. I look at the way they work out, the way they run their routes, the way they finish through the whistle. What do they do when they don't have the football? How are they in the weight room? You know, weight room to me builds a lot of toughness and builds a lot of character. Do they skip reps? Are they pushing themselves? Are they looking to see if a coach is spotting them, if they're working hard? You know, that tells me a lot, you know, because you have top 10 percenters who's always doing what's right and going above and beyond, but most people are 80 percenters just trying to do enough. And so do I have an 80 percenter or do I have a top 10 percenter? You know, no one wants a bottom 10 percenter. So I want to see how hard does this kid work. And is he a good person? You know, I want good people in my room. They're contagious. You know, just negativity is contagious, but I want good people that we can feed off of when things are not going right. How is this kid responding? And so that's my qualities that I'm looking for in someone that I'm coaching.
We're talking with Eric Ward, had almost 3,000 career receiving yards in Lubbock at Texas Tech when he played from 2010 to 2013. Joins us here on Big 12 Today to break down the wide receiver position, going through newcomers in the league. Eric, I want to get your thoughts on Texas Tech's wideouts last year. And, you know, they bring in this kid from Auburn for this season. They've got a couple guys that were in the rotation last year. But, you know, much has been made about the fact that they didn't score in their college football playoff game. Just your take, how would you summarize the wide receiver room in Lubbock?
I would say, you know, it's still developing. I believe Coach Juice does a great job with them. But, you know, as a receiver, a former receiver myself, there's always room to get better, and I think Coach Juice is doing a great job. And I think 2026 season is going to be awesome.
So, you know, when you look at Tech and sort of the turnover they have at the wide receiver position specifically, you know, how difficult is that? I mean, not just at wide receiver, but certainly along the entire offense. At quarterback, offensive line, running backs will be similar, but how difficult is that?
It's hard, you know, especially when you have guys that are, you know, considering ball carriers or the guys that you're looking at explosive plays for. It's hard to replace those guys, but as a coach, you're always thinking big picture. You know, you got to be thinking the next season as well as the season that you're in. You got to be thinking, okay, who do I need to develop to replace this guy that's been, you know, carrying us this season? And so it's always the big picture approach.
Eric, love the fact that you're in coaching and that you're coaching there in Lubbock. How much do you lean on, you know, anybody within the Texas Tech family as mentors? Who are some of the guys that if you have a question you can call in the profession?
I would say all those guys that Joey hired are great coaches. But personally, the guys that I lean on would be Joey McGuire himself, Clay McGuire. Clay McGuire actually recruited me out of high school. He was my recruiter. He was actually the reason I went to Texas Tech. I was actually committed to go to OU.
Wow.
And he's still there. So he comes when he's allowed to come by, he stops by, you know, it's just we rekindle where we left off. He's always been a friend of mine, but Joey is really, you know, personable. I shoot him a text message, ask him a question. He gets back to me, and we talk football. So I couldn't ask for a better situation.
You know, some of the players that I had listed for me were freshmen, incoming freshmen, 4-star recruits. You know, Texas Tech certainly has one of them, but there's Tyron Horns for UCF and some others. And we just saw, you know, Miami have a lot of success with a true freshman wide receiver. Like, what goes into that? What do you think is the difficulty for a true freshman to step in and contribute right away, especially at the wide receiver position? And what does it take? Like, what are the types of skills that player needs to possess in order to start right away or to play right away?
So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, toughness. You have to be a dog. You know, when you're evaluating talent in the wide receiver room, you're looking for kids that can catch the ball, break tackles, kids that can do it over and over again. You know, playing receiver is making the routine plays consistently. You know, having attention to details, toughness, and discipline. You know, each play, whistle to whistle. And so I would say if a kid can come out of high school and start, that kid is special. You know, that's very hard to do. You know, you mentioned my stats earlier. I wasn't even able to do that because that's how hard it is. You know, the game changes every level you go up from high school to college. I couldn't believe how fast the game was when I actually got to college. But for a kid to come out of high school, the tangibles that he must possess is he has to have awareness. He has to have a good feel for the game, you know, and he has to be explosive. You know, everyone loves an explosive athlete, especially when they're running routes. Great route running and going out there and making plays. You know, a coach is never going to turn a blind eye to somebody that's consistently making plays, you know, because coaches want to win just as bad as a kid want to start. So if I have a young kid come into my room and he's doing all those things, then he's putting himself in a good situation to go out there and start for us.
Eric, what do you like about Brendan Sorsby, the new Texas Tech quarterback?
You know, just looking at his stats and just looking at his film from playing, I think he's a playmaker. He creates plays and allow guys to get open. And so even when plays break down, he's getting out the pocket, but his eyes are still downfield. That's what I love about him. And then when plays breaks down to where everyone's covered, he can take off, and he has good speed to make plays out of nothing.
Well said. Eric Ward, man, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver, spent 4 years with Texas Tech, played in 47 career games, over 250 catches, and nearly 3,000 receiving yards, 31 touchdowns, too. He was pretty good for the Red Raiders. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Stick around. We've got our Big 12 men's basketball huge announcement coming up at the top of the hour during the final whistle. He's Ari, I'm James. You're locked into us exclusively on TuneIn, and you're watching us on Big 12 Studios.
Pavilion. Campbell wins the tap against Camp Cart. A.J. DiBonsa controls, and off we go from Waco. And Rob Wright, the former Baylor guard. See the starters for BYU. We mentioned the top trio for them in the country, and then they want more from the interior. So that's a good start from Kebakeda. Locals love it. Cam Carr in transition for Yesufu. And he knocks it down.
You got to chin that basketball, big fella.
A theft from Rob Wright in his return. Pow! Foul! +1. Seen so much of that from DiBonsa recently. Yesufu loves these tough fallaways, and he got it to go. DiBonsa initiates off the wing. Gets the switch from Powell. Drives on Powell! Oh! Air! AJ takes off. Yesufu can't stop smiling as he was hanging in the air when he fired that pass. DiBonsa, oh, he spins one home.
Come on, man.
What can he do?
Well, you got to be more active, like in your some slips to the rim, okay? Quick decisions there. Not a quick decision holding the ball, and Saunders takes advantage.
And lays it in. Took it from Carr. DiBanza gets it to go on a foul.
How well BYU season ends.
Cam Carr pulls, and that does it. BYU comes into Waco, puts up 99, and exits with a victory over Baylor.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are 19 minutes away from the announcement, not the decision, the announcement for the Big 12 men's basketball tournament in Kansas City this year. A huge announcement at the top of the hour that will have breaking news here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Just talked with Eric Ward, the former Texas Tech wide receiver, who I believe is Texas Tech's all-time career leader in receiving yards with almost 3,000. He was a starter from 2009 to 2013. We had our names to know, impact Big 12 wide receiver newcomers for this fall. We also talked a lot of college basketball. Some shockers last night with TCU taking down Iowa State. Oklahoma State suffering a brutal loss at Arizona State. BYU, Rob Wright goes for 30. DiBanza for 36. They hang 99 on the road in Waco at Baylor. And then Houston took care of business. Emmanuel Sharp became the all-time career leader at Houston in made threes because he had 8 last night, surpassing Marcus Sasser, who's now in the NBA. But here on the final whistle, have you caught wind of Joe Tipton's On 3 tweet about Darren Peterson? So apparently he has spoken to some general managers in college basketball across the landscape.
In college basketball.
College basketball. Darren Peterson.
Not GMs of the NBA.
No, general managers of college basketball. not NBA, general managers college basketball. And the question, the talking point, is one $3 million freshman worth more than 3 $1 million players who are fully bought in for a full season?
Is Derek Peterson not bought in? I thought he was just injured. Right? He had the flu. What do you mean he's not bought in? Is he not bought in? What do we... all he wants to do is play.
Just wants to play.
He just wants to play. That's all I keep hearing about. What do you mean? What do you mean he's not bought in? Sounds like fake news to me, James.
An anonymous general manager of a college basketball team used the terminology bought in.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the beginning, Darren Peterson's not the type of player that Kelvin Sampson would recruit. Now, could Kelvin Sampson spend $3 million or $3.5 million on a player? No, but that's beside the point. There are certain players that you probably want to and need to avoid. And by the way, we haven't even really mentioned that Kansas is very much in the driver's seat for the number one recruit in next year's class,
Tyron Stokes.
Tyron Stokes, who also has a giant bag of drama coming with him. Yeah, if I'm Bill Self, I probably want to get out of this business. Not the business of coaching, but the business of managing two different rosters. It's obvious that the answer here is you'd rather have 3 $1 million players and not one $3 million player. And I would hope that some of what's happened with Peterson this year was obvious even before the season started. It's the reason that I've been calling pretty much all year for them to basically tell him to take a hike. He raises their ceiling, but he lowers their floor. Mm-hmm. He, I think, in many ways does more damage to, and he's a hell of a player, and I would undoubtedly take him number 1 overall. But one of these things has to be true. Both can't be false. Either he is injury prone and unwilling to push through. He's had the flu 3 different times. He's had cramps. He's had a quad issue. He's had a hamstring injury. Either that's true, that he's injury prone or unable to pull through injuries to play, or unwilling to, or he doesn't care about the name on the front of the jersey. One of those things has to be true. They both can't be false here. So, Darren Matsubara, who is his agent, Mats, who's got quite the reputation, is doing what he believes is in the best interest of his client. Now, we'll see where the rubber meets the road here, if it truly is, when it comes down to the NBA draft, and if there's reservations that maybe some of the teams have about the health concerns or the name on the front of the jersey concerns. But both of those things can't be false here. One of them has to be true. Either he is really hurt, and some of these little things that have occurred to him over the course of the season, he's just either 1, hurt, 2, hurt to play, or 1 or 2, not willing to play through them, and maybe he suddenly will be in the NBA, but or he's just not bought into playing for Kansas and doesn't care about the front of the jersey, only cares about the name on the back of the jersey. Yeah. My guess is it's the latter, not the former.
Well, and I think that it's magnified by the fact that you have Melvin Council Jr., who's logging so many minutes and plays his tail off and plays for the Kansas brand and the prestige and the pedigree. Let's hear from some of the national guys, including Bruce Pearl, former Auburn coach. This is what he said about if he was coaching in the NBA, how he would look at Peterson.
They're really good with him. They're really good without him. The difference is he doesn't have the ball in his hands when he's not playing out there, so the other guys have got to do more. I don't think this is going to affect his draft stock, because I think everybody that I talked to in the league, he still looks like the number 1 guy. But if I was coaching in the NBA, I'm sorry, I would have some concern. Missing 11 out of 24 games for hamstrings and quad pulls and illness, just a long list of different things. My job is to coach a team. My job is to win championships. General manager got to make another decision. I would be a little concerned about, just how tough he is.
How tough he is. Missing 11 of 24 games for a variety of things. And again, Bruce Pearl, I love that he clarified that he's approaching that from if I was the head coach. The general manager has to make his own decisions. He's the one balancing the checkbook and the budget. But if I was a coach, I want dogs, like Eric Ward was just talking about, the receiver position, guys that you want to go to battle with. And Bruce Pearl questioning that when it comes to Peterson.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because he's got some dog in him, like
yes.
The ending to the Texas Tech game. We can't forget about how that went, and the fact that you've got 30+ thousand, whatever the stadium is, 15, 20,000 plus screaming, expletives at him at the foul line, and like he internalizes that and he just rips their heart out with 2 threes in a row, right? So it's so interesting. I would 100% take him number 1 overall without any reservations. I would. And it has nothing to do with AJ DeBansa. It has nothing to do with Cam Boozer. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It's this dude, when he plays, is the best. Undoubtedly. Look, I think, so many of these guys are so high profile from such a young age that they're so protected for so long that you wonder how that stunts their ability to not be protected. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was happening in high school for Darren Peterson. He was not playing the full allotment of minutes in high school. He's doing the same thing in college. So there's this clear, trying to protect him from over wear and tear. It's so ironic. I keep bringing this up, but it just keeps being at the top of my mind that I'm reading the book Never Die Easy, the autobiography by Walter Payton, to my son right now, because it's just like the premise of it is the complete antithesis of what we have now.
Right.
Of athletes in the modern world. And I don't know that it's a bad thing necessarily. My goodness, Walter Payton died in his 40s, right? So maybe his approach to life in football overexerted himself so much so that he was out of life by the end of it. Mm-hmm. Now, I refuse to believe that that's what that mantra would lead to. But my God, we've gone the complete opposite direction. We've gone from never die easy, and that with Walter Payton was he would never go out of bounds. He would always initiate contact. Like, he would look for contact. He would never go to bounds. I mean, now you see guys get down, get out. And I get it. They're trying to protect themselves, but we just see this in every area of our society. We're avoiding confrontation. We're avoiding being uncomfortable. We're avoiding wear and tear as opposed to meeting things head on that could lead to adversity that could help us grow and become better.
It's well said. Darren Peterson has missed 11 of 24 games. His status for this weekend remains to be seen.
I mean, I think he didn't play because it was a Monday game on a quick turnaround. He's not going to play back-to-backs, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
He played 34 minutes on Saturday because Bill Self knew that he was not going to play on Monday. I don't believe that they had no inkling of that. I think the next time Kansas plays on Big Monday, he will not be playing. Or if he does, he will not have played on Saturday. And we know how this is going to end. We know how this is going to end. This is going to end with him on the bench. We know that. So any illusions when you pick your bracket, know that you're picking Kansas without Darren Peterson.
When did Kansas have their players-only meeting? Michael Swain, our buddy at 24/7 Sports KU affiliate, notes that KU's in the top 10 now in Torvik rating, but they're number 6 in the country since they had their players-only meeting, which I'm assuming was about 7 or 8 games ago.
Yeah.
Because they've won 8 straight.
Remember, they started 1-2. We went through they had not started 1-3 ever in Big 12 play. It had been since the 80s or something. They had been 1-3 in conference. So it feels like right around that time is when that happened.
There were 4. It was after the West Virginia game, Taman notes.
Yeah, so they're 1-2. They're now 9-2. And they're good with him. They're good without him. They're better with him, but guys, they're this is only going to end one way. Like we've seen this before. These are the types of things in sports that, like, as optimistic as you want to be about everything, it never turns out that way. I am under no illusion that this season is going to end with Darren Peterson sitting on the bench or in the locker room.
Well, the good news is there may be better with him because he's so dynamic, but there's not much of a drop-off when he's not on the floor. The way they played against Arizona, that group collectively, and I think they play harder when he's not out there in terms of effort, loose balls, defensive rotations, all those little things that Bill Self loves. KU's got a big one.
I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to that. That they just play, they have more of a dog mentality without him. It's almost like with him, there's like a sigh of like, okay, our best player's here. We don't have to bring it. They're probably in some ways, it's a mental piece.
Totally.
Like they know they've got to do more. I don't know whether or not his handlers, family, his dad, or his agent will allow him to play in the tournament in the second game of a weekend where you're playing basically back-to-back. I don't know.
Right, like that's the thing.
But that's why I say, like, we know how this is going to end. Like, this is to be under no illusion that when you're picking Kansas in the tournament, that Darren Peterson will be there for every game.
Like, coaches love Big Monday. Coaches love MTEs in the non-conference because it is a taste of what's to come in March in the NCAA tournament. When you're playing on a 36-hour turnaround based off of location and start time and TV network and all those other things. Like, the tournament's really fast. It's a lot of games. If you're going deep, it's a lot of games in a very small window.
I also think, like, I don't want this to come off as being hard on Darren Peterson. He's doing what he has to do. And the reality is, like, there are a lot of guys that went straight from high school to the NBA that shouldn't have. This guy shouldn't be playing at this level. You know what I mean? Like, he's good enough to be playing right now on an NBA roster. So this is a means to an end for him.
Right.
I think the thing that we struggle with is, like, the never die easy mentality of wanting dogs and, like, just the competitive side. It's like, don't you want to play on Big Monday at home against Arizona? Like, don't you want to be in Allen Fieldhouse for that?
Undefeated. It's the number one team in the country.
And it's Allen freaking Fieldhouse, man. Like, and I think, like, that's in the back of my mind. It's like, you're not bigger than Kansas basketball. Bill Self isn't bigger than Kansas basketball. You know what I mean? Like, it's there's the arrogance of the program that I take so much pride in, where it's like, who do you think you are? Yeah. You know, like, seriously, you might be the number one pick and one of the best players ever in the history of the game. We'll see. Time will tell. But, like, you're not bigger than this program. The program that had the inventor of the sport being the only losing coach in the history of the program. The program that had Wilt Chamberlain, some of the greats to ever play. The program that's won multiple national championships, including 2 in the last 25 years. You're not bigger than that. So it's like, who do you think you are? And then I go to the agent, to me, who's at the center of all of this.
Mm-hmm. By the way, some of his other clients include Brooke Lopez, Steven Adams. Brooke Lopez is making $25 million this year in the NBA. Who else does he have? Clint Capella, $22.9 mil. Jalen Suggs, another NBA client of his, making $3.4. But his list, like the pedigree of clients that he has, I mean, Peterson's number one, right?
Well, there's a reason that he's at most of Peterson's games.
Yeah.
And, the reality of the situation is, I think, if you're just looking at this sort of holistically, he's probably doing the best for his client. He's doing what's in his client's best self-interest. But time will tell whether or not this is the right move. Like it makes sense. The more wear and tear you have, the more that adds over time, the worse off you're going to be. But there's got to be diminishing returns there. Like there at some point, there's got to be a point at which you've gone too far, and you've set yourself up for failure because you don't know how to deal with adversity when it hits. I mean, at the end of the day, he's got to be the best player on a championship level team playing in every game and most minutes of the playoffs for the hype around him to be justified. Is that fair?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Based on all the hype around him and the number one pick and all this talent in this draft, like it's got to end up where he's got, like, I don't care how many regular season games he plays, he's got to play all the postseason games, the biggest minutes, and be the best player on a championship level team. That's what the expectation is for him. And if you're never doing that, ever,
right?
Well, then how are you set up to do it when you need to?
Right. Not meeting those expectations. All right, there's 2 games in the Big 12 tonight. Cincinnati plays at Kansas State. Colorado plays at Texas Tech. The Colorado-Texas Tech game is at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. The Cincinnati-K-State game is at 9 Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on CBS Sports Network. Here's what Grant McCasland says about his players and how much they love to play. Clip 7.
Yeah, in our league, because I think TV has been tremendous this year. I mean, we're on so many different networks. You play at different times. I think the key to it is how you put yourself in position going into it where the guys know this is when we're going to play and what time we're going to play. And, I mean, our team, we practice in the morning, we play late at night. These guys are in the gym till midnight shooting shots. I mean, the way our approach is, these guys are young. They love hooping. They don't care when you tell them it's tip time. As long as they get to play in a game they want to play.
These guys are young. They love hooping. They don't care what time. They don't care where it is.
By the way, do you know how I know that they do? They play.
They play, and they play like it.
Everybody needs to tell me how much Darren Peterson loves to play. I don't have to guess how much JT Toppin loves to play. I don't have to guess. Nobody has to tell me that. I turn to the games that I watch. Weird. Oh, he wants to be out there. Does he? Does he? Yeah, bet he does. He does so much so that he's unwilling to show us how badly he wants to be out there.
All right. We've got the green light. It's announcement time. We've been waiting.
The whole conference has been waiting.
The conference has been waiting. We're at the top of the hour.
America has been waiting.
America has been waiting. Big 12 men's basketball in Kansas City. I'm the lead today, so I throw it to you for the biggest announcement of the year when it comes to men's basketball.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. You didn't have to give me the honors of it. We could have done it together, maybe holding hands together, connection. The Big 12's basketball tournament in Kansas City this year will feature an ASB glass floor, which is, if you haven't seen, what was used in the All-Star game a couple of years ago.
2024.
But it is basically a floor that can change and will change and is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. If you're watching us now on Big 12 Studios, you can see examples of it. An ASB glass floor is essentially a floor with a screen underneath it that can be changed instantaneously with different designs. If you check out the ASB glass floor Instagram page, you will see just how incredible and unique it is. This is the first time that a ASB glass floor is being used in this capacity. So the Big 12 is obviously extremely forward-thinking, innovative, and this falls right in line with that. And I think this is a huge game changer because of just how incredible it's going to look during the Big 12 tournament here next month. And, I mean, it's going to be a sight that people are going to want to see and watch. And I would imagine this is something that will eventually be standard across all basketball gyms.
Yep.
But
this is the future.
This is the future.
The All-Star game, they had stats, they had trends, they had the shot clock actually on the floor, making it that much more visible for fans at home watching on television and fans actually on site in what will be Kansas City for the Big 12 men's basketball tournament and ASB glass floor. We'll be talking to them later this week or early next week. Tomorrow, we'll be talking to them tomorrow on the show. Their mission statement says that, you know, it's a sports flooring solution that enhances performance, reduces joint strain, and offers unparalleled versatility for every sport. It's supposed to be much less injury-prone, the flooring. There's a lot of science behind it. It is very forward-thinking. All right, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Wesley, and we're back tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Central Time, right here on the channel. This has been Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. You've been watching us on Big 12 Studios. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We're out.
Peace.